what I figured. I just didn't know.
I'd like to call the select board meeting to order this evening. Are there other boards that need to call to order? Sean? Thank you. Any others?
No
Not yet?
records until mine gets ready.
Okay, very good. Thanks tonight. We're being recorded for RCTV Live, Comcast Channel 22, Verizon Channel 33. The videographer for tonight's meeting is Rob. Welcome, everybody. Tonight, we have a very full night, as usual. So let me just give you a quick overview. So we're going to start with public comment. We have 2 public hearings scheduled, one on non-union classification schedule and compensation, one on water and sewer rates. We're going to have a discussion and votes on the use of Arpa funds for 2 things, a literacy curriculum and to support lower water rates. We're going to have a discussion and vote on water and sewer rates. We're going to have a town accountant quarterly update, discussion of a flag policy for the town, 2 proclamations, one for Juneteenth, one for Pride Month, review a new intermunicipal assessors agreement, future agenda, meeting minutes, and that's the first half. Please, Marion.
Can I please call the RAC to order?
Thank you very much. So given the folks that are in the room, I want to ask my fellow board members, what do you think about taking things a little bit out of order this evening? Would it make sense to do public comment and then go right into the discussion of the literacy curriculum of Arpa funds? Would that work?
My only concern with that, I agree, but how's that gonna affect, how long do we wanna delay the potential hearings? I mean, the potential. If people, I know no one's coming for the hearings, so I guess, I'll retract that, sorry.
We've had exciting hearings and not so exciting.
Yeah, I'll take that back.
I guess for me, does the public hearing have to start at 7:30 or can it start
No.
at 8 o'clock?
As long as it's after.
Exactly.
It's before.
Then I don't see any issue.
Fair, Jackie?
I don't have any concerns with that. Due to the number of folks here, do we feel like the time we've allotted for public comment is enough?
Well, let me get to that if I could.
Yep.
So we have allocated 15 minutes in the agenda for public comment this evening. But I think there are more people that would like to speak. So what I'm gonna suggest is that we need to find a balance. We have some very time-critical votes to take tonight. But I'd like to give more time for public comment also. So here's my suggestion. Why don't we try, let's see if we have 30 minutes for public comment. Let's see if that works. In fact, any item that you'd want to speak on that's on our agenda tonight is fine during public comment. If you do want to speak about the public hearing items, the water and sewer rates or the classification changes, you can speak during those hearings instead. If that works for you, we'd appreciate that. That probably would help us in terms of timing. So the way that we do this is all the public comment takes place in advance, and then we'll have the presentation from the Dr. Milcheskin, select board discussion and vote. So just kind of organizing things a little bit. What I can do is I'll call on people in the room, and if we have others attending on Zoom, Caitlin, I'll ask for your help in identifying who those folks are. You should raise your hand on Zoom with the raise hand feature so we know who you are and that you're looking to be there. I'd ask that comments be no more than 2 minutes. Please stay on the issues and be respectful. We'll probably use a timer just to kind of help us keep going with the 2 minutes in case there are a lot of people that would like to speak. And let's see how it goes. We can adjust if we need to. Before we start the public comment, I think it'll be helpful to provide an overview of the so-called Arpa funds and our plans for the votes this evening. The federal government's provided pandemic recovery and relief funds to state and local governments. Reading share of these funds is about $7.5 million. The funding is under the use and control of the select board. It must be all used or committed by the end of 2024. Some communities have used these funds to allow for one-time projects, some to repair water pipes, and a variety of other community priorities. The select board established a group of elected and appointed officials, including the finance committee, school committee, library board, and the select board, called RAC, the Reading Arpa Advisory Committee, I believe, to help advise us and to vet some potential projects based on those brought forth from the schools, the town, and a variety of volunteer groups. The plan is for the select board to then make decisions after getting input from the RAC. To date, we've received requests for far in excess of the $7.5 million that we received. The review process by RAC is not yet complete, but the 2 projects coming to the board this evening were reviewed by the advisory committee at our last meeting, and were deemed time sensitive to this meeting tonight. And I believe all the select board members actually were in attendance at that RAC meeting also. With that said, what I'd ask is to please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. I'll try to call on as many people as we can, one at a time. We'd ask that you come up toward the owl. And I'd ask people, whenever we're speaking in the room, we can probably all hear you, but on RCTV, they can't, unless you're up kind of by the owl. So please make sure if you're engaged in the discussion to please come up and speak. So with that said, would someone like to speak? Please.
Mark Ventura, Precinct 2, current town meeting member. I support the spending of the Arpa funds on the literacy program. We all know about the water rates. We pay some of the highest rates in the MWA. I believe at town meeting, we talked about that allocation would reduce the rate by 2%, if I recall, to 2% from 4.5, if I recall correctly. Last quarter, my water bill was $560, I believe. A 4.5% increase is about $25. That's a small price to pay to fix our literacy programs in our educational system. And by the time that benefit rolls out, my kids, I have 4 years left in Reading Public Schools after this year. It's not gonna really benefit me, but one of the reasons why I came back to Reading was because while I grew up here, we have a great school system. It's a great place to raise a family. And but our school system fell in a little bit of decline between when I graduated in '89 to currently. So I think we need to try to negotiate with the MWRA, which I believe you brought up, which is a great point. I love that. But I don't wanna, I wanna see the literacy program move forward. One of my sons struggled through the years. It's very difficult, and we gotta build those foundations at the elementary school level. And a benefit of having a strong school system is our property values go up. People wanna come to Reading. We're the crossroads of, you can get anywhere from Reading. That's one of the selling points. But also the school system. And that's one of our biggest assets as we get older and start thinking towards retirement. So I'd love to just see that money be allocated and really bring our school system back to the great educational system it was when I went here. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Other folks that would like to speak? Caitlin, do we have folks online that would like to speak?
No, we do not.
Back to the room. Anyone else like to? Mr. Wise, please.
Just a point of clarification, do you want the school committee to make our statements now, Sue, or do you wanna wait and have us do that after your conversation?
If that's baked into kind of the school presentation, then do it there. If not, you're more than welcome to speak now.
I think it's more appropriate at that point in time, so I'll hold off.
Okay, very good. Other public comment? All right then, so let's go back. Let me just get the agenda. Oh, sorry, please, come on up. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ignore if I didn't see
It's
your
okay,
hand.
no, you didn't in the last minute. I'm Jen Coyne, live on Oak Street, 129 Oak Street. And I have 3 kids here in Reading. One currently is in the Reading school systems. One is currently out of district for special education needs. And I really think we need to invest in these kids and in the literacy program now. Our youngest are the ones that need this intervention. And while it may seem like it's not covering the entire town and all the needs of the town, if we invest in this now, we can save ourselves a lot of trouble down the line, including, having to send kids. My kid is out of district. We can save ourselves a lot of money. We can save ourselves a lot of time. We can save ourselves some lawsuits, that are required to have your student be out of district. If we take the time now for those students, we can avoid a lot of those problems down the line. Money's in other areas. Also, we have all these Metco kids that are coming that are not doing well on the MCAS. We're failing them. We're failing them. Our literacy program is failing our younger students. And we're feeling the backlash of that. And I just think it's time. It's been talked about and talked about and talked about for years. Nothing's happened. We have this opportunity and now's the time. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Please, Charlotte.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Lestrade, Precinct 5 team town meeting member. I'm also a special education para, and I support the literacy program, one as a parent, but also as a para in the special education program. I think we definitely do need to strengthen and put more efforts into our education and our literacy program so that when they come up to the high school, we're not, or even in the middle school, we're not losing them to other districts or other schools. And we can keep that in-house and keep educating our children the way we started to when they were smaller.
Michelle.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Marianne.
Hi, Mary Ann Downing, 13 Heather Drive, speaking as myself, not as the RAC chair. You know, just speaking about RAC as an outsider, I know people are saying RAC is supposed to follow a process. And as a citizen, and as both as a member of the board, which I'm not speaking for, I understand that. But Arpa is not, we don't have to live solely by the process when there's urgent needs that come up with documented problems. This board already allocated money to public health, $250K. That was an urgent need of the pandemic. Outside of it, there may be other things that come. There may be things that come by September. Another thing I just wanted to point out, this board voted to opt for the treating ARPA as lost revenue option. And normally when our district gets revenue, we divide it up 1/3, 2/3. You don't have to do that this way, but usually the schools are typically getting 2/3 of every revenue dollar. And here they're asking for 25%, which is less, and they're saying that's all they want. So I feel like this early ask is getting out cheap. There's some people who think, oh, well, the schools should get half, the schools should get 2/3. Again, it's with your discretion, but I feel like this is a modest ask. And I guess my other point, further to servicing our students and what we need to do, I know you all aren't trying to judge the merits of the program that they're going to talk to you about. That's the school committee's purview. It's the school committee's purview to decide whether they want to pilot it or roll it out, or the pilot that they've already done is sufficient. But we do have a problem that and we're not the only people in the country, people with this problem. We have 36% of our high need students, which includes ELL, low income, and special ed, as well as our Black students and Hispanic students. I'm sorry, high needs does not include that. Those students are consistently not at grade level, which is costing us a lot of money. In fact, for some of those groups, it's more like 2/3 of them are not at grade level. This is a problem nationwide, and gradually other states have been making themselves, as Dr. Milcheskin will tell you, change the program to try to bring these students in who don't have the advantages that a lot of students in Reading have. I mean, people will say, well, 2/3 of the kids here are reading, so what's wrong with our curriculum? Well, those students are coming in maybe more ready than a lot of other students, and I'm sure Dr. Milcheskin is going to tell you more than this. So my point is, this is a bargain compared to what the schools usually ask for. It's an urgent need. I think I would have a hard time trying to tell 1/3 of our K-5 students, sorry, you gotta wait till town meeting, wait for special town meeting, wait for free cash, wait another year for this. I really think they need it now. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else that would like to speak? Caitlin, anyone online? All right, let's move on. So we're gonna take up the the item called discuss vote, time-sensitive school department ARPA fund request. I think the next activity is calling Dr. Milcheskin to come present.
Thank you. Where's the best place to stand?
Towards the middle.
Towards the
Yeah,
middle. We have
kinda.
a team with us too. I'm not sure if we, I'm gonna ask each of them just to come up and introduce themselves really quick, and then we'll dive in. I think we'll just kind of come up one at a time as we speak. So first, those who I haven't met, I'm Tom Milcheskin, the superintendent of schools. Thanks so much for having us tonight.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Hardy, I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Learning and Teaching.
Good evening, I'm Joanne King, I'm the principal of Wood End Elementary.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Levesque, principal of the Killam Elementary.
Good evening, nice to see you all. Caitlin Shelburne, principal of Joshua Eaton.
I'm Carrie DiNapoli, grade 4 teacher from Wood End.
Hello everyone, my name is Erica Bourne. I'm a full-day kindergarten teacher at Killam.
Hello, I'm Tanya McGuire. I teach 5th grade at Killam.
Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. And we'd like to start just by thanking the community. I've shared this in the beginning of all of our presentations, but I know there's some new members of our audience. Thank the select board for having us tonight. As I've shared, I know there's some communities who have approached this differently than we have, and schools haven't been at the table consistently. And I really appreciate having the opportunity to be at the table throughout the process, have representation on the RAC committee, and then ultimately have the chance to speak for you on what we believe is an urgent ask for our schools. So thank you for the opportunity tonight to speak with you. So as we dive in, we've shared a variation of this presentation with both the school committee and RAC. Tonight we'll move quicker through a couple of parts that we think we've gone through in detail. Also, we've added a few different pieces to this presentation in response to some of the questions that we've received over the past couple of weeks as we move forward in this. So to frame the whole presentation, I'd like to start by saying that this is our one ask. You can be sure we're not going to come back and ask select board or ask RAC for any additional funds. And we believe that's because this is our one big priority at the moment, right? This is what we believe is our best investment to transform outcomes for our students. And we also believe that this represents the best, spend to save strategy that we can have in our district. So we're here tonight, obviously, to ask for your support with ARPA funds to move forward to help fund our literacy curriculum. Move forward. Next slide, please, Caitlin. Again, we believe that our ask aligns closely to what ARPA guidelines. I know they're expanding ARPA guidelines now. The two connections we made is first, ARPA guidelines suggest or outline assistance to address the impact of learning loss for K-12 students, e.g. high-quality tutoring, differentiated instruction. We underline differentiated instruction because we feel the curriculum tool that we're recommending tonight will allow us to do that well. Secondly, services to address, sorry, Caitlin, my fault. It's okay. Services to address educational disparities, including assistance to high-poverty school districts and educational evidence-based services to address student academic, social, emotional, mental health needs. I think tonight we're coming before you with something that we believe is evidence-based, an evidence-based strategy to be able to address some of the academic needs that we're seeing across our schools. So again, we believe that our ask aligns closely to what's outlined in ARPA guidelines. Next slide, please, Caitlin. So we want to take, this time I've shared this, I think probably with most people in the room, a little bit of a backstory of how we arrived here in terms of our context. So first, Caitlin, click one time. We believe that our goal in terms of literacy needs to hold ourselves to a high bar and ensuring that all of our students will be grade level readers. I don't think, again, I have to emphasize to anyone in this room the importance of making sure that every single student leaving our each grade level are on track. Particularly the early age, where we know that the farther they fall behind, the more difficult it is to catch up. I think we heard Sharilla speak to that a little bit tonight. So that's our goal. Next slide, please, Caitlin. We realize that we're not quite there yet towards reaching our goal. Love MCAS, don't like MCAS. I think we have a lot of different measurements to look at how our students are doing. I think this is one measurement here we see on MCAS that we do not have all of our students currently performing on grade level. We see most recently in 2020, 2021, 64% of our kids are considered being on grade level or meeting or exceeding expectations on MCAS. A number that I think as our team we are not satisfied with or comfortable with. Next slide, please. Also, when you break that down further by demographic groups, I think this is something that really for our administrative team, our teachers, our families, and our students really pops out to us. All of those numbers below, when you look at the broken down by subgroup or by race, First, looking at students with disability, recognizing that only 25% of our students in grades 3 through 8 are currently meeting or exceeding expectations. Breaking down by race and ethnicity, currently only 32% of our African American and Black students are meeting or exceeding expectations. So again, these are numbers that we feel we have significant work to do, and I think I share the value with our entire community that we need to be as aggressive as possible to making sure that every student on that chart is reading on grade level. So that's our context. Next slide, Caitlin. So given that context, you can go click a couple more times. Sorry, I know it's a pain when we have them come in one at a time. That's good right there. Perfect. So given that our goal is all students reading on grade level and we realize we have work to do, there's 3 additional pieces of context that we think have led this to be a priority for us this year as a administrative leadership team and district. 1, we've talked a lot about over the past couple of weeks, new understanding of literacy instructional practices. I really appreciate many members of this community who said I wasn't even up to speed on some of the research, some of the brain research around what it takes to effectively support a child to learn how to read and to support students' literacy development. We know that there is a new understanding sort of across the sector of what that looks like to effectively support students in their literacy development. We also know that there's Ed Reports, a well-respected nonprofit organization who vets and looks at curriculum, came out with a report to say that the current tool that we use, the current curriculum tool as our core curriculum units of study, is not sufficient for our kids. So also not aligned to what we say in that first bullet about what we say is research and best practice is around literacy instruction. So there's a gap right there, and I think that gap contributes to what we just outlined as some of the rationale why we are where we are with outcomes. And lastly on this list, we have heard time and time again, the demands and planning on our staff is just with the current curriculum tool is cumbersome, can be ineffective, having to pull from multiple sources. All of these pieces have, I think, pushed our team to make literacy a top priority for us this year. Now, with that said, we believe there's 2 things that really pushed us in the urgency in moving this work forward than maybe it would have taken a more traditional year. You can click twice, Caitlin, if you don't mind. Thank you. The first being the pandemic context. I can't begin to describe enough just the impact that the pandemic has had on students academically and social emotionally. I think in our budget this year, coming into FY23, we put a lot of social emotional support in place for our students. We also know that academically, our kids are in all different places, and I think our teachers would attest. And we hear from teachers, I've never seen so many kids with so many different academic needs. That has pushed the urgency for us. This is not something we feel we can just intervene by providing some kids with some supports to be able to support, all of our kids to read on grade level. This is something that takes a strategy sort of that impacts all of our kids. The second piece that really propelled, I think, our work this forward in terms of the urgency was the Accelerating Literacy Grant. As the community knows, we received a $200,000 grant that we didn't anticipate even receiving at the end of February, $200,000 to put towards high-quality curriculum materials that have to have the materials in hand by June 30th. So again, while we believe that literacy has been a priority for us this year, given all of what we've outlined up here, we also believe that the pandemic context and this has amplified the need, and the Accelerating Literacy Grant has also, we think, propelled sort of the urgency for us in a positive way. So tonight, our team's gonna speak a little bit about the curriculum that we are recommending and share some rationale on why. Share a little bit on the timeline for where we were and how we arrived at where we are now, and then be more specific with what the ask is of the select board and why we arrived at the figure that we arrived. So I'm going to turn over to Dr. Hardy.
Awesome, thank you. Ms. Caitlin, can you click to the next slide? Thank you. One more click, thank you, awesome. So we have.
Ask you to speak up a little because the microphone can hear you and I can't.
Sure, sorry. Use my teacher voice. So we have with us tonight a group of educators who are going to fill you in some detail. And we thought it was important to share with you about the program that we have selected to move forward because we want you to understand how it meets some of the needs that Dr. Milcheskin just outlined and why we really think that is going to be a game changer for our students here in Reading. And just as a quick overview, American Reading Company is the publisher, so ARC-Core is the name of the program. One of the things that we really loved about this program is that it is a comprehensive program, so it includes all the elements of literacy. Some of the other programs we considered, we would still have had to supplement other components in. And so we think that that's a strength for a lot of the reasons that we've talked about, consolidating for our teachers and also streamlining for our students. And so I'm gonna have some of our members of our literacy leadership team share with you in a little bit more detail how we arrived at this decision and why in-depth this program is a good fit for the students here in Reading.
Sure, thank you. So you can head to the next slide. So I guess the big question is why our core? Our team of principals, teachers, instructional leaders looked at a number of different programs, and we started with what are the most highly rated programs in Ed Reports and Curate. Research matters to us because it's that objective lens. It's the researchers who, they nitpick every little layer of the program. They look at standards alignment, they look at teacher accessibility, and things of that nature. After looking through those highly rated curriculums, American Reading Company really, stood out. Our teachers and our instructional leaders in that space rated this as the top curriculum amongst the few that we looked at. It was exciting to be in that space because you could feel the energy. I think we felt like it was almost created by teachers for teachers. Looking at some of the MCAS data that Dr. Milcheskin shared, we know that we're not where we want to be yet with our literacy data. And we also know that differentiated instruction is at the heart of that work. This program met the mark in that area and really accelerates our high learners and works to differentiate based on our different learning needs. A pillar in the Common Core is around building world knowledge. We talk about that in our social studies and our science, and this curriculum really weaves that component in at the heart, where our students are researching, they're learning facts, they're looking at history and science and things of that nature, and that was an area that excited us as a thematic curriculum. And then lastly, as Dr. Milcheskin shared, we're in a world where social emotional learning is at the heart of our work. We want our students to be critical thinkers, and we know that this curriculum develops those social emotional listening skills, speaking. Our students, they grapple with many different topics. They make their stance and opinion based on what they learn. So we're excited about this program for these reasons, and it was nice to be a part of this process where we vetted we spent many hours together, and this curriculum truly showed. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Carrie Napoli. I'm a grade 4 teacher at Wood End, and I just want to take you through the exploration that we went through to come to being part of the ARC program is what we're recommending. So one of the things that we did as a team of teachers and leaders is we did look at different programs, and when we looked at them from different perspectives. So not only did we meet with sales representatives, we met with teachers who were actually using the programs. So some of us got to do site visits. We then were able to come back and debrief. So our voice was heard, and we were able to recommend ARC as the one program that we feel fits the needs for our students. So a couple of things that we did was after every sales pitch that we heard, after every site visit, we were able to debrief and talk about the things that were positive, the things that we had concerns about, and ARC always came out at the top, that this was the one program that we feel like, again, will benefit our students. We really feel confident that this is something that will be a game changer, and as well as being able to go and see and talk with teachers that are using it. We were able to do a deep dive and look at the curriculum that they would offer to us. And again, ARC came out at the top, and this is something that we feel very confident that this will benefit our students.
So you've heard a lot about the programming that we've looked at, but I wanted to dive a little bit into Ed Reports, which is one of the tools that we did use to really start our research. As Dr. Milcheskin and Dr. Hardy said, this is a really reputable company that is doing this work, and their purpose is to look at curriculums through 3 lenses, and they do it across all content areas. So it's not just literacy that they're diving into, and they're looking at student learning, high expectations for all, and equity. And I think we would all agree that that's really the foundation of the work we do in our schools and what we're striving for. And so through Ed Reports, which again is a national report, and you've heard this other word, curate, which takes Ed Reports and is specific to Massachusetts. So curate reports look at it specifically to the Massachusetts standards. So when you see Ed Reports, we took what was there and also looked at what came out of the Department of Ed. And in each situation, our core scored very highly. And the way that they look at their scoring, and you heard some of my colleagues speak about this, is that they do a deep dive into 3 different gateways. And they refer to these terms gateways, which are really barriers that say, if you meet this criteria, you can move to the next level. And within the 3 gateways, there's between 8 and 20 indicators that they're looking at. And in there is everything from, does it meet standards, to what's the usability for all of our teachers and our kids. So you can see the green across the board, which is the high rating that it's getting, saying that it not only met expectations, but that it scored very highly on this Ed report. If you go into Ed Reports, which is available to everyone, you're welcome to read what it looks like and really dive into why did our core score so highly. But I think it's just important to note that from kindergarten through 5th grade, which we can see on the next slide, you'll see that across the board it did meet expectations on all 3 of the gateways. Caitlin, can you go to the next slide for us? Thank you. Oh, can you go back one more? Sorry. Perfect. Okay. And one of the things I think is really important to note that's also quite unique about our core is that the areas they didn't score their highest, or areas where there is room for improvement, they are actually have already gone back and are making improvements, but will continue to do so. And that's one of the things the publisher was really working with us on and saying, listen, we know we missed the mark here, we heard it, this is where we've moved forward. And so we will see those changes, which will only increase the score as time goes on. Caitlin, if you'll go to the next one. Just a quick glimpse. So a lot of people will say, well, you know, did everyone score really highly? So here's our current units of study, just to show that no, there are places that did not meet those expectations. And so we did look at a comprehensive look at about 5 curriculums and quickly narrowed it down. And we really wouldn't have been able to do this work this deeply or this quickly without this tool. So this really allowed us to launch it because a lot of that heavy lifting was already done for us in a very intricate model. So we appreciated that, and we appreciated that we were able to see the difference between the programs in that way.
Good evening. From the start of the process, we used a program exploration tool to gather teacher responses after each program exploration activity. We gathered 80 data points using that tool. We started by reviewing all the programs that were highly rated on both Ed Reports and Curate, and then narrowed it down to the top 3, which you'll see in the graphs on these slides coming up. The first data point or criteria point in our exploration tool was student engagement and culturally responsive. We looked for content and activities that fully engaged every student and provided diverse perspectives and representations. And as you can see on the data graph, our core stood out amongst them. Criteria 2 is access for all and equity centered. We looked for intervention and tiered resources that met all student needs and provided support for English language learners and students with disabilities with equity outcomes for all student groups. Our core again ranked the highest among the teacher evaluations. Next slide, Caitlin. And criteria 3 was content. We looked for content that was aligned to the standards and evidence-based practices for literacy instruction. We also looked for a knowledge-building curriculum, which research shows and supports that it supports students' comprehension skills. The 4th criteria in our assessment tool was assessment. We looked for embedded assessment that was administered regularly and connected to small group instruction and intervention. And again, our core stood out as the highest amongst the marks.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the teacher accessibility, and this is the ability to take the manual and to be able to use the lessons that are provided. one of the things that ARC has done is combined everything into their manual. Right now, what we have to do is we have to pull from different resources that we have, and it's not really equitable across all classrooms. So one teacher may have access to something that another teacher does not have. The other thing that ARC has done is it has created a number of small group lessons, which I know for teachers, including myself, it takes many hours to create those, to then have your students be part of them, and then to collect data, and then what are your next steps. So ARC has done a really nice job with putting all of the pieces that we need, grammar, spelling, vocabulary, small group instruction, all in one place for us that really will help us put more of our hours and energy into actually teaching the kids. Another piece to this is the accessibility to differentiated instruction, which is right there for us with lessons already made that if we have a para come in, it's ready to go for paras. They can sit and they can help us run our small groups, so we'll be able to reach more kids at one time. And then the other piece that was really a game changer for a lot of us was the PD piece, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about what that will entail, but having that PD piece will help make the program more accessible to us.
So the piece that I'm most excited about is the professional development. As you've heard from an amazing group of teacher leaders and educators in Reading, this has obviously been a significant focus of our efforts and energies over the past few months, and we've spent a lot of time researching and looking into the best curriculum for our students. I've had 2 students graduate from Reading Public Schools. I'm still very vested in this community, and I feel like this is an important component to moving the district forward and taking care of all of our students. The professional development piece is the piece I'm most excited about, in that I've been here 20 years, which is a long time. I've seen a lot of different structures in place, but we spend the least amount of time and money and effort on developing our educators, and providing professional development and support for our teachers, I think, is essential. To have the best educators in the classroom, you have to invest in the teachers. And I think that's the most significant piece to this program. I think all of these teachers deserve significant investment. And I think ARC does this over the course of several years. So the first year, this is not a one-shot workshop. This is not a day-long event. This is a year-long, multi-year process, where the first year, there's 10 to 15 days of professional development for every teacher that's implementing this program in all 5 elementary schools. 10 to 15 days for each teacher. In addition, it's 10 days of leadership learning for the administrators. And I can tell you, as a principal in this community, I've not had professional development unless I've sought it out and paid for it. So that's a significant impact. We're expected to go in and evaluate our teachers and identify best practice and coach them and support them. And we don't know the curriculum because we don't have time for the professional learning because we're spending so much time on operations. And I think Reading has to make that shift. It has to make the shift to develop educational leaders and not operations managers. Year 2 continues with the rollout would be grades 3, 4, 5 next year, and then K2 the following year. So in year 2, it would be an additional 10 days of professional development for those teachers who are rolling out the curriculum, in addition to the 10 days of professional development for the leadership for each school in the district. And then year 3, where all of the schools K to 5 have implemented this program, it's 5 to 8 days of teacher professional development per year still, obviously looking at practice, what's working, what's not, refining, but these are with the people who've actually created the curriculum and know how it works. In addition, the leadership series continues into that 3rd year. And I think without investing in the teachers and the administrators in this town, we're not going to move students forward. That has to be the focus.
You can go to the next slide. So Sarah and I are going to speak a little bit now about timelines and about funding. And I think those are where a lot of the questions that we've received over the past couple of weeks too. So first, in terms of timeline, I recognize that in a lot of ways, sort of this ask is new for people, and I recognize that that raises some concerns, and that raises concerns about just process as well from people, and I respect that and I hear that. I thought it was important for me to be able to share a little bit about just the timeline of where this work, I believe, has started, at least in my own recent memory, and to how we got to where it is now. Now, I'm going to start the timeline in November 2020. But I don't think it's fair for me to say that's where this work started. I think we've heard from a few families tonight. I've heard from a lot of families who feel like they've been advocating for years for their child, right, to have access to a higher quality literacy tier 1 curriculum. So it's unfair for me to say that this work starts in November 2020. These are parents, I think, who have started this work, right, and community members who have started this work by advocating for a long time. And we know that advocacy work for your own children means the most. So thank you to all the people who are not listed on this slide who have really advocated for this over the years to help pave the path forward. I believe that for what I can speak to, again, in my short time, learning back in November 2020 when CPAC began to form Reading and Reading, and you see that work continued into later into 2020 and 2021 with multiple presentations and meetings by CPAC around reading. That work then evolved, shifting into, which was my time in October 2021, when we started to look at our district MCAS data. There were some concerns around outcomes, particularly around some of our subgroups, which we then think raised the urgency for us to put together the administrative advisory committee for another form of Reading and Reading to build off of the work of the Reading and Reading through CPAC. This was a group comprised of about 25 people who broke off into two branches. One, to look at PD and curriculum tool preliminary analysis, and the second, all around parent community education and engagement. So thank you to the 25 teachers and parents who served on that committee. They were diving into this work and they were pushing this work forward. So thank you to all of those who served on that committee. Moving forward, in February of 2022, I shared the presentation of my own entry plan findings, which was, for those who aren't aware, as I entered the community, I committed to a structured process to say, I'm looking to find out the strengths, challenges, and opportunities in the community from my time in classrooms, from looking at data, from spending time with students, staff, families. One of the big themes that emerged was our need to be more thoughtful and strategic and urgent around Tier 1 literacy curriculum. So that was in the entry plan findings. Then at that same time, given some of these pieces already at play, Dr. Hardy, Dr. Stiles, the rest of the team put together our wonderful literacy leadership team formed by 20 plus teachers, special education teachers and principals who started moving this work forward. Caitlin, you go to the next slide. That work we then thought would be sort of a longer process. Then we realized in February of 2022, we received a $200,000 grant from DESE, which, as I shared earlier, has to be spent by June 30th. That's when we looked at our school communities and figured out sort of what do we do now? This is a process that is now going to could be quicker than what we anticipated. We always knew we needed to move towards a higher quality Tier 1 literacy curriculum, right? Maybe it would have taken more time, but leaving the $200,000 on the table didn't seem very appetizing to us, and we felt this is a direction we were going to go in anyway. So therefore, we tasked our literacy leadership team with diving into this work, and I think we were encouraged and we were really appreciative of the detailed work that our literacy leadership team did to do such a thorough analysis and work in a short period of time. Again, as Principal Lex shared, helped by the resources in Curate and Ed Reports, yes. But this team really dove in to help move what I thought was a thorough process in a really short period of time. Again, I also want to emphasize sometimes we can extend curriculum tool sort of assessments on a long period of time. Time doesn't necessarily mean that that's the highest quality process. Of course, time can buy you certain things. I feel really confident this team did a really thorough process, albeit within a shorter window. This work then continued, I think, and really picked up pace in March through evaluations by our literacy leadership team, presentation from our team on Student Opportunity Act, where we talked about literacy, and then additional presentations that have transpired over the past couple of weeks. So again, I have heard concerns, questions around timelines, process. I thought it was important for the community to see just from our perspective where we've been over the past couple of years to arrive at this point right now, which we think is a critical moment and juncture for our district. So I'm going to turn over to Dr. Hardy, who's going to work us through the last part of our presentation, which is just talking through prices and quotes.
Yes, thank you. Awesome. So I'd like to just give you an overview of kind of where this final number of $2 million comes from. And it relates to our implementation plan. So next year, year one, we'd be looking at rolling out the program with grades 3 through 5. So we'd make an initial investment in those materials, and we would also be purchasing digital licensing and then the PD that Dr. King had outlined. We're able to discount that cost here by that DESE grant that we were very fortunate to receive, and then also some savings that were realized in our FY22 operating budget that will also reduce that first year cost. Moving into year two, we would look at continuing the program with grades 3 through 5 and adding in K to 2. So there would be those additional first-time materials being purchased for K to 2, and for 3 to 5, replacing some of the consumables that would need to be replaced, continuing with PD for both groups. As we said, this is a multi-year PD plan. Year 3, we will have purchased all the initial materials, but we'll be looking at material replenishment, and then the cost for digital licensing and still continued professional development. In that year, our K to 2 teachers would only be in year 2, so we would still be purchasing that full 10 days actually for them. Just because they're starting a year behind doesn't mean that they will miss professional development. And so year 4 is the year that both groups are kind of in a, year 4 is K to 2 would still receive professional development as it's their third year. Digital licensing and material replenishments would still be needed for both groups. Caitlin, could you go to the next slide? So when we hit year 5, that is the year we're in steady state. We'll no longer be purchasing professional development from Arpa, and at that point, our minimum annual cost will be the digital licensing, which would be $43,000. We anticipate on top of that having consumables that we'll want to purchase, and also because this program relies so heavily on the amazing texts, and those texts are in school, they're also going home. We expect some wear and tear, and so we know that we'll be replacing some of them. That's why there's a range here up to $150,000 based on what the publisher has told us to anticipate. We believe it could go up that high some years, depending on. Caitlin, do you mind going back one slide for a second? Just to give you a really quick sense of what we're purchasing with these materials in those first years, we're purchasing a significant amount of materials and books. In the Unit 1 that students receive, there comes not only the initial teacher materials, but also what they call a wide reading library. And those are books that the students access over the course of the year. Those are the books that will be going back home and that kids will really dig into and build their knowledge from. Then in the subsequent units, so Units 2, 3, and 4, teachers will introduce a new library for each of those that kids will be conducting their research in and reading widely on a subject. This is where the students will kind of come together to create kind of a intellectual group that knows all about a certain topic and can converse with each other and ask each other questions and become experts. And so there's just many, many books that will be in our kids' hands, high quality, multiple representations, really well-made, beautiful books. And that's one of the reasons why those material costs are so high, because so much print material actually comes with it. So the total that we are asking for here is $2 million. Dr. Milcheskin is going to explain a little bit more about that.
So just in our last minute and a half here, we have just two things I want to address, some questions that we've heard. Things one is around sort of what does this look like for the future with other grant opportunities. I think the school, and I can give credit to the previous administration and their team, were really good financial stewards, I believe, with being thoughtful about how to use grant money to be able to find opportunities, and also when there is an excess in funds to be able to think about how to collaborate with the town on that work. I can tell you that we will work really hard to find grant money to be able to support this moving forward. What we're asking for is the money tonight that would give us sort of the cover to be able to make sure we can get there, but we will work really hard to find other opportunities to fund this, hopefully through grant funding. I had a conversation with Senator Lewis today about this same thing, saying if DESE is also expecting districts to make this sort of transition, it's also important for us to have that same side of financial support. So I would anticipate that those are grants that we would have a realistic shot at now that we have moved sort of this work forward. So that's, we will maintain the commitment that the previous administration has set in terms of being good financial stewards with the town. The second piece is around, I've heard a lot of questions around why the $2 million ask instead of the 433 ask, and I think that's a really good question. For us, the urgent ask in the moment is 433,570, because that's what it would take us to put together with the $200,000 to be able to get the curriculum off the ground and running and the training for next year. Right? That's that's the urgent ask in the moment. Now, the challenge is, right, is if we don't have the commitment of moving forward to fund the full cost of the program, I have to then look at the teachers, look at the families, look at the students and say, we have 433 and we still have, 1.6, 1.5 left to go to get us there, right? I think we've talked a lot about the need of what our need is. We've had our teachers do the hard work. We feel that we have a path forward, right, for us to be able to move our district forward in a really exciting, innovative way that aligns to our student needs. And we believe that getting the commitment to move full all in on that will allow our teachers and our team to begin to plan to make sure we can reach all grades 3, 4, 5 next year, K1, 2 the year after, and effectively roll this out with the right training over the next 4-5 years. So again, while the short term, yes, is that 433, we think it would be difficult for us to commit to moving forward with this curriculum without the full understanding that we have access to the resources that we need to be able to move this forward all the way to the finish line. So again, I'd like to close just by first thanking all the teachers and our administrators for coming tonight, but also for all their work in the process. Thank RAC for the thoughtful conversation last week. Thank our school committee for thoughtful conversations throughout the year on this. Thank our community. We have a very passionate community, which is something I love about Reading, share their thoughts and perspectives on this. And also thank you to all of you tonight for giving us a chance to speak tonight and for taking the time to thoughtfully consider our proposal and recommendation. So thank you.
Thanks. Tom, would you like to have school committee members speak? Sorry, other Tom.
Other Tom.
I guess Tom Wise, school committee chair. I didn't have anything prepared because Dr. Milcheskin covered most of it. But I guess I'll just report out officially, right? At our school committee meeting last Monday, the school committee voted 6-0 resoundingly, excitingly to support this. There was no doubt about it. I think there's nervous hesitation here right now. And that's why I'm looking at the faces and I'm going like I'm sitting in the back. I'm sitting there going like this. They don't see me, but last Monday, you could literally feel the excitement in the room. And I hope you get a sense of that now. But last Monday was bouncing off the walls excitement. Joanne gave you the small version of what she gave us.
Toned it down tonight.
She toned it down a little bit, but I mean, I think we are all in on this. Undoubtedly, all of us are all in. And I think, Carla said it to me, we, like you, have our own challenges about how we are aligned at times. This is not one of those. We are 100% aligned across the board on this one. There's no doubt about that. They've laid out the reasons, they laid out the justification, they laid out, the amount of research they put into this. Teacher-led research, people have asked to make sure teachers are involved. They've absolutely been involved. They've been core at the table. You've heard them talk about how they've dove into the data, they dove into the information, they went to visits of schools. We didn't do that when we implemented illustrative math, as an example. We didn't actually go to districts and find places that it was there. This time we did. We went to districts and we talked to teachers, they did. Talked to teachers, talked to principals, they made phone calls to other districts. How's this implementation going? And all they've heard is positive stuff. So, I just want to encourage you. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration. I know this is not an easy thing. $2 million is not an easy thing to say yes to, right? But this is probably, and I'll say this as clearly as I can, this is the single investment we can talk about and we've talked about in RAC. I'll also put that hat on right now as a RAC member that has a chance to save this town money. This has, they didn't talk about that because it's not something we can commit to necessarily, but it is something that will happen, right? As much as we can commit to it, we can commit to it. We have a ton of kids out of district. You've heard from a couple of those parents today. This curriculum, if implemented at the beginning, can start the process of weaning that down. It's not going to solve everything. Let's be clear about that. It's not the be all and end all, but it absolutely gives us a much better chance to solve some of the greatest problems we've had over the last 8, 9, 10 years, frankly. We talked about it for, 2 years, as you saw up there, as we started making some of the progress. But this has been a problem for a long time, and to see that we're finally at a point now, this is the apex moment, really, for a lot of us. And to be able to say, coming out of here, I'd love for it to be a 5-0 vote tonight. I really would, because that would speak so loud to the town about how much we value education, how much we value our children, how much we value the teacher input, the principal input, their growth, professional growth, and the amount of investment they're gonna put into that. It's a ton of investment they're gonna put into that, and a ton of investment we're gonna put into them to do that. So I just wanna, thank you again for your, participation in this process. You've asked a ton of thorough questions to some of us one-on-one individually, right? You put us through the ringer, and I think that's the appropriate thing for you to do, because it's not a small amount of money. But I hope we've answered your questions tonight and otherwise, and I encourage you to vote yes tonight, so thank you.
Thanks.
Mary Ann, do you want to report out for RAC?
On our last RAC meeting on May 11th, 2022, RAC voted to recommend this commitment of $2 million by a 6-1 vote.
That's great. So I think what we should do now, if it's all right, let's open it to board members' questions and comments. In an unusual fashion, I actually would like to go first tonight. Look, I had a number of questions before, during, and after the discussions at RAC. And I really appreciate the opportunity to hear from you tonight, to hear from you at RAC. Dr. Milcheskin and I have become best buds over the last several days, talking about pools and other things also. The questions that I raised weren't about the need for the literacy program. I see it, I hear it loud and clear. It's fantastic that you folks are also aligned, that the school committee is also aligned. My questions have really been about what's the best way to fund the program? Where could we find additional grants, additional sources of funds, including the regular budget process? All that's important to any project or program we do in the town. In understanding contractual terms and ongoing costs, which, and you addressed a number, like all of my questions basically, so I really appreciate that. I've also had a chance to speak, as Tom said, one-on-one, I think with each of the school committee members. I've talked to quite a few Reading residents in the last several days, and it's been great, really, really constructive conversations. I also thought a lot about the funding mechanisms for a leap like this, because this is kind of what it is. It's a leap that we're talking about. Normally, this would be part of our operating budget or a special request to town meeting. That's how something like this would happen. And after thinking through all the strong needs and the other things that we know are going to be coming down the road for the town, for the schools, for the kids, full-day kindergarten, Killam, I feel much more strongly that ARPA is, in fact, the way to get this done. We have a lot of goals that we need to take care of. We have a senior community that I think we all realize is hurting and is going to need some help. And probably, ARPA funds may be a good source for that as well. So the issue for me really is, how do we use the limited funds that ARPA has provided to us? And I've come to believe that the only way to fund this is to support the full $2 million as the way to get it done here. And I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's a vote of confidence in the new superintendent, the administration, the teachers, the students most importantly. And I think it's a vote of confidence. I want to thank Fidel for getting engaged in this activity also. This I think is the right thing for the community. So I am supporting the $2 million. Other comments or questions from the board?
Ladies first?
Actually, before we jump into that, town accountant, speaker, might we talk to her a little bit about the funding items?
Encumbering and things?
Yes.
We can do it anytime. We're gonna do that?
Might be helpful to just have a little conversation about that, it's new information.
All right.
All right.
Sharon, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Hi. Can you share with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Great. Can you?
So I had a conversation about this ask with our auditor, Zach from Melanson, just to confirm, where the funds extend out to 26, how we could go about doing this and stay within the parameters of the grant. And as long as they encumber this money by December 31st, 2024, we're all set. But we can't enter into a contract that's more than 3 years. So we can't enter into an agreement that takes the whole $2 million at this point, because that would be more than 3 years.
But we could do the purchase of the first year's curriculum and then entertain seeing if we could get a contract for 3 years for the remaining materials needed. That way there we would have it encumbered and there's no chance that we'd forget to encumber it by the date that is laid out in the grant. So that was a recommendation by the auditor. You don't have to do it that way if they have a mechanism at the school to make sure that they don't forget to encumber this money by December 31st, 2024. All is well, it will work. The only other prompting that the auditor gave us is to make sure that we're following procurement law. I believe this is exempt. And Susan seemed to confirm that in our conversations earlier. So I think we're in good space with this. It's just a matter of making sure that we don't miss that deadline, because I don't want to give any of this money back.
Yeah, my guess is that's not gonna be an issue at all.
Well, when you think about how far out December 31st, 2024 is, it could be easily forgotten, I guess, but I just want to make sure that we know that that last couple of years, we really need to be thinking about making sure that deadline is adhered to.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. And I thought, I appreciate Sharon reaching out proactively and because in the many questions that we were answered about how the licensing works, I understand it's an annual basis. So thank you to making sure we stay out of trouble and things can change in a year with the company or whatever, and I'm sure we'll figure it out, but at least we got that answer before we made a decision. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just more of a confirming question. I think all of us in our professional lives have been through rollouts of programs, some of which are more successful than others. You mentioned high rankings on teacher accessibility and on professional development, but I guess from more of a accessibility and usability, how do you feel about the ability of the program to pivot and reassess once we've had more experience with it?
Thank you, Jim. That's a really good question, and I'm glad you raised it because it's one of the strengths of this publishing company. As far as I've been able to ascertain from my dealings with them, but also in speaking with the districts that have been using them for several years. Principal Levesque mentioned how they were able to pivot when they had research about components of their program that needed updating. One of the pieces too where I've seen that they have that flexibility is in that professional development plan. So for example, in the year 3, the final year, we'll have the option to work with them in regards to how do we want to structure that final year of PD? Do we want to create within the schools lead teachers who will then be available to train new staff coming in? We can also, as we go, customize so that if we find there are certain components that for some reason aren't meeting our needs in Reading or need to be bolstered, again, the coaches are flexible. They're going to be coming in and providing some explicit instruction to teachers, but also doing modeling and that shoulder-to-shoulder work. And so it will be very easy for us to customize as we find. With any program that you purchase and any curriculum that you roll out, part of it always is monitoring your implementation plan. And it's not enough to have that plan and just say, let's go, let's roll out. It's so part of my job and the leadership's job is to be monitoring that implementation. So part of our plan will be putting in those metrics to assess how is the program working for our students, and are there tweaks that need to be made with the publisher. No program is absolutely perfect. We know that. There's no unicorn out there, and so that will be part of my role working with the leadership team to ensure that we monitor closely and bolster where needed.
Thank you.
Jens?
Yeah, I'm fully on board. I've been, thinking about this a lot since the Arpa committee, and obviously Tom and staff have been thinking about this for years, and it seems highly needed. And what I came up with was that, to me, never mind the ask and what it's going to be used for, but there's that scary word override out there that we're always going to have to think about in the future. And 9 times out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, the override comes from the schools. So we've had that experience, and many other municipalities have. So the $2 million, for me, other than the specific purpose, is kicking the override a little bit further down the road, as far as, for this particular rollout and just, other needs that are gonna come up, because we know many other needs are gonna come up, and I'm sure they're gonna, put that in the budget, ask town meeting, whatever it is. I think our job, or my commitment, running for this seat, was to avoid overrides as much as possible, if at all. So that was one angle that I came up with that, to me, this helps that. And other than that, I have heard, I don't have, young kids in the school system, but of all the excitement with the new administration and the support of the school committee is just another rubber stamp of approval, so I'm all for it.
Some would argue about the rubber, but okay. Thanks, Kyle. Chris?
Thanks, Mark. One of the ideas that I had when I had signed on to the Arpa committee was to see about solar at the high school to possibly then fund full-day kindergarten, et cetera. But I'm not a superintendent, and I plan to be. So that's why I'd have to trust Dr. Milcheskin to come up with the right decision. Now, if solar would have been right, he would have been here mentioning it right now. But this is the need in the community, and it's been like this for a long time. The first meeting I ever had with Dr. Milcheskin, I said to him that we're up there in the rankings, 150, 160s on certain things, and just to slowly get us back down into the top 20 in schools. That's why we all moved here, was for Reading schools, et cetera. And slowly and methodically just get us back down in that direction. And that is exactly what is up on the board right there, is slowly getting us back in that direction. And I would just ask everyone just to look left and then look right. And one of those people wouldn't be able to read at grade level in Reading Public Schools right now. And to even fathom that is just absolutely just ridiculous. And I am happy to see that that ends tonight. So thank you.
Great, thank you. So I just start out by saying thank you to the superintendent, and thank you for the members of the school committee who reached out to me, and the many residents who were educators or retired educators very close to the schools who also reached out to help educate me over the past 5 days about our reading curriculums, pros, cons, bad implementation aspects, good implementation aspects, and all of you, which is like, this is even a bigger group that came to RAC. So thank you for making the time to communicate this and to educate me. I really appreciate that. And so some of the concerns about the rapid process for making the decision, the unorthodox funding mechanism, as you adequately described, so I'm not gonna go over that again. Those are concerns I hear from residents and concerns that I have. So while I appreciated being educated about our curriculum and literacy needs, I really needed to focus on the process and the financial aspects of this request. I had hoped that RAC would be doing more of that, but nevertheless, as long as we get it done, that's really all that matters. And so over the past 5 days, I can say that I am, although I don't have a purview of a curriculum, I'm convinced that that you should be allowed to pursue what you think is the best for our kids. And I certainly can't disagree that some of the younger learners were the most disadvantaged. They're the least equipped to deal with a pandemic, remote learning, masking situation. I don't know that anyone would agree with that in this room. So, and the other concerns from the community had to do with lack of a pilot, jumping right to rollout. You know what, I can give you guys the benefit of the doubt on that. You're ready to do it just because there's usually more than one way to skin a cat or a vegetable or however that saying goes.
I like the vegetable.
So I have confidence that you should be allowed the flexibility and the freedom to do. Times change, and the quicker we get this problem solved, the better. So I can definitely respect that. The timing of this funding request is less than ideal. because in November town meeting will be asked to fund a design feasibility study for a new Killam school at a current estimated cost of $2.2 million. And I know the schools are aware of that, and I hope you all are as well. So that's a bit of a concern, and that goes into avoiding overrides and meeting other important goals and being cognizant of the many goals and the many priorities we have in this community. We don't have enough ARPA funds to fund all of our priorities, and they're all equally important. So as a board, we would be derelict on our duty to ignore this big picture and not consider this funding request in the context of these other priorities. So that being said, again, thank you to Superintendent and the members of the school committees for really asking a lot of questions about how this needs to be funded, when it needs to be funded. For example, so the licensing currently isn't on a year-by-year basis, so that I appreciate and I understand then a placeholder or a backstop request, however we wanna phrase it, where if this board approves this, we can earmark this for the funding. And I am thrilled, and I did ask lots of questions about other sources of funding like DESI grants, and I'm thrilled that you've reached out to Senator Lewis. I think that shows the commitment, and again with year one, showing the commitment of pulling in savings through the operational budget. I feel comfortable that we can work together to make this happen, and at this point I would be confident. I would be confident with understanding that this is the single ask, that this is what this would be spent on. I would be comfortable with a commitment from the superintendent that we're gonna apply for grants and come back and report to, I guess, the select board, maybe after year one or year two, just to get us on track and see where it's being incorporated into the operating budget. And let me just make sure, and then I think that'd be it. The town accountant is more than happy to work with your finance department to make sure we get this and we don't overlook anything. So thank you so much. This is amazing, and I know everyone, including the parents who might have been involved who aren't here, and the other educators have worked really hard on this in a very short amount of time.
Any further comments to the board? I think we're ready for a motion.
That was quick, Mark.
In fact, last night I was getting used to it.
Yes. Move to allocate $2 million from the ARPA funds to the school department curriculum funding request.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Carl. Any discussion? Please, Chris.
Thanks, Mark. To tie off Mr. Ventura's comment that he made earlier, I moved here about 15 years ago as well for the schools in the safe community. And when I ran for select board, I was told that I couldn't speak on anything school related ever. It is what it is. And I am beyond thrilled to vote yes tonight for the current generation and future generations that are just gonna be like me moving in here to be able to just have a safe community where the education level is gonna be off the charts. So thank you to Dr. Milcheskin, Dr. Hardy, the whole team behind you as well. The school committee, ARPA committee, literacy team, and most of all the teachers, because the execution of this curriculum isn't gonna be possible without them. So the feeling that you have right now, when you walk out that door, just don't forget what it's like, because the real work is gonna start tomorrow.
Positive note. Any other comments, board members? Let's take a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Opposed? 0. We are 5-0. Congratulations. You folks are all welcome to stay for the public hearings and other activities.
Water and sewer's coming up. Water and sewer.
More so they gotta get to work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Thank you.
Mark, I need a second. I need to,
Oh, sorry.
motion to adjourn the school committee. Second. All in favor? And Chuck, where are you? What school committee's adjourned?
I guess.
Thank you.
I don't know. 1,
Thank you, Mark.
1, 2, 3. don't know if Joe was there. I think we gotta
Joe is still
adjourn
there.
back.
Joe is still there.
Joe's still there.
Just-
Yeah, but you're gonna miss one.
I know, I'm gonna, you guys are leaving, right?
Yeah, do you want to adjourn us before we leave?
Motion to adjourn, rack,
Second?
okay? Favor, yep,
All in favor?
thank you. I'll still be here.
No worries. Thanks,
A lot of
folks.
stuff.
All right, let's give folks just a minute to wander out, and then we'll come back.
Yeah, the last year. And then how much discount says. But that's the same wrong.
I was expecting a lot more public comment. Works smoothly, maybe you'll get out an hour earlier.
Thanks, Rob. Nice seeing you. Thanks.
I want you to have a take your time getting home. Take your time.
What's next to the agenda?
Joe, can you just push that door shut?
They weren't saying that when they weren't saying that, they were stealing backhoe money.
Yeah. It's just for sound. And the people can be in the other room too.
They are. There's Tommy's in there celebrating.
Hang on, folks.
He's jumping up and down right now.
Don't say anything about the select board while you're in there.
He's doing his interview in the other room.
Jumping up and
Yeah,
down.
I think we gotta
You
turn
don't
off
need the
the
camera,
microphone.
just flip the camera on.
He's fist pumping in the air.
It'd be funny if you did like a victory, like the football victory dance.
Oh, Ted Lasso?
Ted Lasso.
I know that's not the name of it.
Dr. Milcheskin.
That's what I call it.
I'm just thinking, like, you know, he's doing the touchdown dance and they. Alright.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, folks. Let's, if you don't mind, can we do the liaison and town manager reports at the back? Let's dig into the public hearings.
Sure.
Let's get going. So, Chris, can you open the public hearing on the non-union classification, please?
Move to open the hearing regarding the FY23 classification and compensation schedules.
Great. Phil, would you like to present first, and then
Yes,
we're in
please.
public hearing, so we're open for comments from others.
Absolutely. So we will show you first the classification plan. This is a plan that gets approved by the select board. I believe the last time it was approved, it was to add the public health director, and I was in the transition period, I think at that point. But it's our standard plan. I wanted to highlight 3 changes, and it's 3 promotions that I included also in my memo. One is the first, the move of the assistant town clerk from a grade E to a grade G, and essentially it's in response to what we are seeing as an increase of requests for public documents, and it's really consuming a lot of time, and so it was an acknowledgement of the extra work. We are also moving our staff planner to a senior planner, and that is going from an F to a H, and the reason why we're doing this is in response to the need from the Reading Climate Advisory Committee, to start working on issues of sustainability, on issues that are related to climate. So the gentleman who is in that position right now is Andrew McNichols. He is phenomenal. He actually just submitted our first MVP grant for $2.3 million, which is going to be similar to Mr. Haley's comment that if we do get it, it's going to be a lot of work. But it's very exciting. The last change is the fact that the economic development director was not on the chart. I'm sorry, and we're not exactly sure why, but it's more of an administrative item. These promotions were all included in the FY23 budget that was approved by town meeting. And then finally, next page, Caitlin, is the
compensation plan. And again, this represents it's our existing chart. It is just with a 1.75 cost of living adjustment, a COLA. And again, is in line with the budget that was approved in FY23 by town meeting.
Thank you. Any public comment? Caitlin, anyone online that would like to speak?
She said no.
Oh, did I not hear it, or was it just?
No, it's muted.
Oh, sugar, sorry. So we can close the public hearing and have our discussion about it? Any reason not to do that? Make a motion to close, please.
Move to close a hearing regarding the FY23 classification and compensation schedules.
Second.
Thanks, Carlo. Any discussion? No, all those in favor of closing the hearing? Opposed? We are 5-0. Board members, questions, comments?
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, just one comment, this seemed like good news, right?
Really good news.
Many staff members were worried this was gonna be ugly, and so.
Yeah.
Very expensive is a better way to say that.
Yeah, no, it's really good news. I mean, we I think Bob on his way out got really creative. I mean, the in particular the move for the staff planner to a senior planner really is a win in both ways. We get to get some staff time to work on sustainability issues and a young staff member who is really a go-getter gets a promotion as well. So we all win.
Any comments? No? All right, are you ready for a vote? Give a motion, please.
Move to approve the FY23 non-union classification and compensation schedules as presented.
Second.
Thanks, Karen. Any discussion? Ready for a vote? All those in favor? Opposed? We're 5-0. Thank you. Next is vote to spend ARPA funds on water enterprise budget. Carl, would you want to show your chart?
Sure.
I think we've seen it multiple times,
Yep.
all of us, but.
It is version 6.0. So would you like me to run through the presentation or do the vote first or?
Well, let's not do the vote first. Is there any question? Maybe show the specific slides on what this request is going to be
Yeah.
and the impact it has.
So if you can go, Caitlin, to slide page 13 in the packet, so keep going down on that one. Maybe one more. One more. There we go. So essentially the request that was put forth to the Arpa committee on the May 11th meeting was a continuation of the previous meeting that we had with the select board, and it's the understanding that if we can use ARPA funds to maintain the rates in FY23, we all benefit. So what we are doing essentially is we are allocating $650,000 from ARPA funds directly into the water enterprise budget. That will pay for 100% of the capital expense for FY23, and will cover a portion of the very expensive MWRA fee as well.
Board members, any questions? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Fidel, is there anything we can do to, concerns from residents, this is a one-year fix, yay, we get through this year. Now, I would hope that since we're built in arrears and we're moving out of a pandemic, perhaps it will not be such a big hit next year. But any thoughts on what we might consider from a budgeting perspective to supplement this so that the appropriate reserves are there and because we won't have ARPA next year? And not to put you on the spot, so you can say I'm thinking about it.
Thinking about it. Yes, I'm thinking about it.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, no.
We could use more ARPA money. That's another fix.
So next year, like, yeah, you think we're really?
Well, you're asking for what can we do?
So for next year, yes, for fiscal 23,
No,
we're
22.
not getting another ARPA grant next year.
Well, not ARPA, but we could allocate more money, is what I'm saying, from ARPA to water and sewer.
No, I think ARPA's gonna be allocated, right? I think our RAC committee is bringing us recommendations between now and September, so there won't be any more ARPA funds to allocate, is what I'm saying.
Maybe this would be a good time for the RAC report.
Right, at our meeting on May 11th, 2022, in a 7-0 vote, the RAC voted to support this allocation or commitment of ARPA money.
$650,000.
650,000.
So Carla, I know you brought this up before in terms of thinking about more. You wanna talk more about it, or?
Well, just to Karen's point, where the bigger presentation from a few meetings ago on our reserves is, pretty bleak. And, so whether it's, we use cash reserves or, it's gonna take a long time, especially the water fund, to regenerate. I mean, we've cut it in half. So that will take time, but, the reserve chart that Sharon prepared for us, again, a few meetings ago, we're at the peak right now, and it's gonna slowly going down. We'll still be in good shape, but it's gonna go on a downward trend as far per the calculations on our reserves. And I don't think it took into effect utilizing the reserves for water and sewer and other, things we have to deal with. Walker's Brook has to be addressed, that's already been discussed. So yeah, I don't know how, other than using our free cash, because we're not gonna be able to use water reserves probably for several years, or if we do, it'll be at our detriment. So I don't have a clear solution, but I think cash reserves are gonna have to be considered in the coming years. I mean, I think Fidel said in 5 years, we're gonna save about $500,000 a year from the MWRA. And if there's a way, we discussed this as a board, approaching them to buy it down at a discount or do something to get ahead of it, because this affects everybody in town. So it's nice that it's a modest increase, but I'm definitely concerned for the next 3 to 5 years, and we'll have to address it year to year on what we have. But
I think my take on it is that, yes, that's the situation we're in. The reserves really got tugged, and we've been traditionally using some reserves to keep down the increases in the rates. And, next year it's gonna be pretty tough. Hopefully we don't have a big hit, but who knows? I think our goal, as we talked about it, was to be kind of giving some help to the community this year. And that was really what we thought the ARPA funds could do. And I think we started at $550, and I think with your suggestion, we took it up to $650. I think it's the right number for now. I wouldn't, I don't think I would wanna adjust it any higher at this point. Do you have a comment, Chris?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I vaguely remember Fidel mentioning, don't we get like $400,000 in a loan, interest-free every year or something from MWRA? So that's something that I had mentioned that we should always be taking advantage of while we can do it, because why would, it's 0%.
Free.
So every single year, that should be maxed out on something should be replaced, etc. I don't see any reason for it not to be. And yes, we literally have to tread water for the next 3 to 5 years to get us to that mark where we'll be knocking off the 500K every time. So I'm not sure how to do that, but that's why we have Fidel.
Other members have comments? Jackie?
Yeah, question. I know we're early on in this process, but you also mentioned, and is in the packet, looking at potentially a tiered structure. And certainly it makes sense from an equity and a conservation perspective. How does, and I know we're early on in that, but how does implementing a tiered structure affect this emerging problem?
I mean, the cost won't change, right? So the enterprise budget is remains the same regardless of how you invoice for it.
Okay.
But what it does, it basically it's more it's less regressive.
Yeah.
I guess is a tax accountant would say, right? I mean, where everyone is taxed equally,
Same, yeah.
right? The same regardless of income. It unfortunately or fortunately, depending on where you stand, right now when we do an increase, right, we only have one rate, so we can only do one increase, right? I mean, so if we have 3 rates, we could do different increases to different rates, right? I'm not advocating that yet, but I'm saying that it is a vehicle that some communities implement, right? So that you kind of hold the line to those that are more financially strapped. So this is certainly a conversation that is gonna really speed up from now until May 17th, 2023, when we're doing this again.
If we were to approve that type of a rate, when would it start to be implemented?
So my goal is to socialize this with you over the next 12 months, right? I mean, and it's not just one time, presentation. It is information that we're going to do to the select board, and my priority is to present this to you as the way that we are going to implement a rate billing in FY24. So it would affect the bills in December of 2023.
Based on us coming to a conclusion by May?
Based on us coming, yes, that's correct.
And not later than?
No, yep, May, June, something like that.
Great, thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like the long runway. I discussed there are some residences in town, older buildings that water is part of the condo fee. So they have always had the option to put in different water meters. If we're able to identify them and once we make a decision and give them a heads up that it's coming, it may not make a huge impact. They may just decide it's fine, but if they are concerned and they were thinking on the fence anyway, being able to identify and let them know it's coming might help them make a decision.
Any other comments, folks? All right, Chris, do you have a motion on spending $650,000 in ARPA funds?
Yep, move to allocate $650,000 from the ARPA funds towards the water enterprise to be used in FY23.
Second.
Thanks, Karen. Any discussion? None. All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? You're 5-0. Thank you. Next, Chris, can you open the public hearing on the FY23 water and sewer rates, please?
Move that the board open the hearing on the water, sewer, and stormwater rates for FY23.
Second.
Thank you. So the hearing is open. Phil, do you want to share those couple of slides?
I do.
Just go through
Definitely.
rates, please.
Thanks, Caitlin. And I'll start by saying that the conversations with water and sewer on the RAC committee are continuing. We're certainly still talking about it. I mean, and one idea that was thrown out is doing supplementing the reserves in FY24. And even paying down some of the expense on the water tank. But those conversations are still ongoing, certainly not finished yet. So the pie chart you've seen before. I mean, the majority of our expenses on the water side is either debt or the MWRA assessment, and with the vote from ARPA, we are essentially covering the cost of capital, $550,000 plus a portion of the debt from ARPA. So thank you so much for the support. I know that our residents will certainly appreciate it. Next slide, please. On the sewer side, it's the majority of the cost is is on the MWRA assessment. Chris Cole can attest to it is when the MWRA sets this assessment, it is a very contested conversation because every community around us that is on the MWRA, and it is about 60 communities, are on the same boat. The majority of their expenses are related to the MWRA. So we will continue to fight and advocate for getting this as low as possible for Reading. Next slide, please. So you've seen the slide. I mean, it's in FY23, we are requesting that we use $450,000 in reserves to lower the rates. On the sewer side, our reserves are just above $5 million, which we consider a very healthy level. Barring any major issues, we are going to be fine in the sewer rate for some time. So with the use of $450,000, this the motion in front of you today will be to set the FY23 sewer rate per 100 cubic feet to $10.86. That is a slight reduction from FY22 of negative 0.3. Next slide, please. On the water rate, we are mentioning how the reserves are not looking as great as they were 2 or 3 years ago. After we use the $650,000 that is before you on this chart, we will be roughly about $3.5 million. I say roughly because as you'll see from the town accountant quarterly update, revenues are not in yet, so we're not sure how much regeneration is going to come in, but Sharon and I spoke, and we feel confident that the reserves, once we remove the $650,000 that's before you today, we'll sit roughly at about $3.5 million. So with the $650,000 in reserves, as well as the $650,000 that you just voted on, it will result in a 4.6% increase to the water rate. And the motion before you tonight will be to vote that the FY23 water rate per 100 cubic feet be $11.41. Next slide, please. And finally, when you combine both rates, it results in a combined rate of 2.2%. And this is again what was presented at the last select board meeting, presented at RAC, and presented now. And then finally, the last slide is what we've been talking about now for a couple of months, and it is to implement the tier rate. Town meeting funded $25,000 to hire a consultant that is going to be doing the work. We have the consultant on contract now. It is the same consultant that has done Wakefield, but really has done a lot of the work in many communities. And that's it.
Thanks, Fidel.
Thank you.
Any public comment, questions? Caitlin, anybody online that would like to speak? Sorry.
Nope.
Last chance in the audience? All good. Okay, we have a motion to close.
Yep, move that the board close the hearing on setting water, sewer, and storm water rates for FY23.
A second?
Second.
Thanks, Jackie. Any discussion from board members? Karen?
I'd just like to say that a 25% increase in a water rate is horrible. It affects everyone in this community, and I'm really happy we had the opportunity to fix that this year. Thank you, Fidel, for coming up for the strategy.
Yep, and it's a one-time fix. So this is a time to enjoy water.
I'm trying to think if that makes sense. how's it gonna impact our rates, you know, how they, whatever.
Uh.
No matter what, it gets expensive, right?
Okay, Chris, can we have a motion to approve the rates?
Yep, move to set the FY '23 water rate at $11.41 per 100 cubic feet within a minimum quarterly bill of $22.82 effective with the December 2022 billing.
Do we have a separate motion on sewer, is that how?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So is there a second on this one on water?
Second, Carl.
Thanks, Carl. Any discussion? Not appearing. Let's take a vote. All those in favor for the water rate, please raise your hand. Opposed? We are 5-0. Chris, next one, please.
Move to set the FY '23 sewer rate at $10.86 per 100 cubic feet with a minimum quarterly bill of $21.72 effective with December 2022 billing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jackie. Discussion? Not appearing. All those in favor on the sewer rate, raise your hand, please. And opposed? We are 5-0. Thank you. Let me come back up to my agenda.
No, just one more.
Oh, sorry, gotta do stormwater. Apologies. Thank you.
Move to set the FY '23 stormwater rate at $60 per unit, 3,210 square feet per year to be billed quarterly effective with the December 2022 billing.
Is there a second?
Second.
The race. Thank you. All right, Carla, one on that one. Discussions, questions? So just to clarify, Fidel, on this one, this is the same stormwater rate, is that correct?
Exactly, yes, exactly. No change.
No changes.
changes to water rate.
Got it. Great. Okay. We ready for a vote? All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? You're 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've done this. Sharon, town account quarterly update, please.
Thank you. Would you mind if I share my screen?
Please do. Yo.
Looks great.
You'll have to trust you on that one, Sharon.
You can't see it?
It's a blob. It's a nice looking blob.
Yeah.
Zoom
Let's see if I can make it bigger.
Like 400%.
Does that make it any better?
Sorta.
Not really.
For
Not
people under
really?
40.
Well, I'll talk about the numbers, but let's see if I can go a little bigger.
Just trust her. There we go.
Much, much better. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna just go over a quick financial update of the general fund and each one of the enterprise funds in terms of revenues and expenses as we approach year end. So this first, this is in your packet, so I'm sure you probably saw it anyway, but this is the revenues compared to the same time last year. It was run on May 11th, 2022. And so that was last week. So this gives us an idea of where we stand in terms of where we were last year for the same revenue types. So if you look at this, we had last year collected, sorry, wrong end. Last year we had collected 98.99% at the same time, and we're at 98.45, so we're pretty much in the same arena. No real concerns about a revenue deficit. I highlighted a couple areas that were lagging behind expectations, so I kind of look at this every month as a, where are we within the year, and what percentage would I think I would be at if all revenues were collected evenly throughout the year, and I would expect to be somewhere in that 86-87%. So anything that fell below, I highlighted and explained for you why. So that one that's a 1 is the payment in lieu of tax. I think I might have talked about it back in February when we met last. That one is typical to be low at this point of the year because RMLD pays a payment in lieu of tax, and they pay in December and in June. So once we get their payment, we will be in line with projections. So that's artificially low looking, I guess is what I'd say. And the same goes for 2. 2 is actually investment income. When I dug deeper into this, I found that we hadn't recorded April's interest and investment income yet. So when I project those numbers out based on what we're typically seeing each month, we will meet projections. So I have very little concern about any kind of revenue deficit. In fact, As of today, we're at 99.07% of projection with like $1 million left to collect, and we have a month and a half left to collect, and so I feel like we're in good shape there. Let's see if I can, and these notes down here were in your packet, kind of explaining just that.
Those are very helpful, thank you, Sharon, it's great.
And then there's not a lot to see with this general fund expenses. I run this each time we do a presentation, and I run it by salary, expense, and capital by department that's voted at town meeting, because the majority of our departments are voted salary and expense, and we can't commingle the funds. The exceptions to that would be the school department, facilities, and snow and ice. The majority of them are voted salary and expense, so it's a nice quick view to look at each one of the departments and see where they stand in terms of the percentage that they've spent of their budget. The one thing I did find when I went through this was just that in some cases people received, or departments received capital funds at town meeting, so I reminded them that those needed to be used by June 30th, and if they had any capital funds that they hadn't used that were, appropriated originally that haven't been used, I just remind them that those funds will go away if they don't get them encumbered. Sometimes we've had very few occasions of it, but once in a while something will get missed, and then the money closes out to free cash. So it's kind of important when you've got big projects moving that nobody forgets to encumber it, especially if it goes to another year. Okay. This makes it so hard to look at, I'm so sorry.
We have it in our packets actually, but.
You do have it in your packet. I mean, there's nothing really that exciting to see in the general fund. Everything looked pretty much in line. We did speak of it back in February. There wasn't anything that stood outside of my expectations in the general fund. So I'm just scrolling to get us to the enterprise funds. Okay, so this is the water enterprise fund for revenues as compared to where we were at the same time last year, again, run on May 11th. We are at 90.8%, but last year at this time we were already at 105, so we're trailing. My theory is that last year we had more people working from home and we were selling more water. So I feel like this isn't really necessarily a bad thing because we are still exceeding my expectation of 86%. I do feel like we will still get there by June 30th to our projections. In fact, when I looked it up, I believe we're at like, let me look at the tool at the end. I want to say it was 97%. So we're really getting there fast. So I don't have any real concerns that water will not meet our revenue projections, so that's a good thing. Same with sewer. We're trailing with the user fees, 108.4 last year and then 93.8. Still well above my projections, where I'd expect to be, but below where we were last year. But still, again, I would feel like we have no concern of a shortfall. In fact, as of today, we only had $684,000 left to collect. So I feel like, but this report was run last week, so that could get in your packet. So I feel like we're in a good space there as well.
Hey, Sharon.
Stormwater, yeah.
If we run excess revenue, like you mentioned here, excess revenue of $640,000 is your estimate, where does that go?
Well, it would go to certified surplus, but that's how much we have left to collect to get to our revenue projection. So it's too early to say what we're going to regenerate because we're not over the projection yet. So in order for us to regenerate, it would be anything above and beyond what our total revenue projection was. So right now, we're not quite there yet. We have about $600,000 left to collect, and then we will start generating free cash.
So actually, that's the answer to my question, which is that if and when we hit revenue above, that's regeneration basically, which rolls to free cash.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we do have the two components where if we collect more than what we project for revenues, that's a piece of our free cash regeneration, and then if we spend less on expenses than we budgeted, that's the second piece. So the combination is your total regeneration.
Thank you.
Question, so is this an opportunity where we could ever, if we could identify it was coming from excess water revenues, we could direct it to reserves?
It is reserves. So the enterprise funds act as a revolving fund, if you will.
Thank
Like it's all inside its own.
One more question.
Yeah.
Can the MWRA give us a projection of where our run rate is for water and sewer consumption?
Yes, yes, they can. I mean, and it's they issue a report once a month. I'll send it to the board for all communities.
Or if you could just let us know ahead of time what's coming. If you, an update, like, yeah, we're running 25%, or we're running only 15%, it's looking better. Okay, that might be helpful, thank you.
Are you thinking kind of the way RMLD sends out kind of the peak notices almost, kind of saying, hey, folks, we're using a lot of water? No, I'm not kidding, I'm not laughing at it, I'm thinking it's an interesting idea.
It always confuses me, the connection between what we use isn't necessarily directly connected to what they're gonna bill us, but they do bill us in arrears, so I didn't know if the only time we're gonna know is after the year closes that we were over by 25% or our cost was up by 25% versus if there's a way. Bob's always given us projections on what health insurance are looking like and Sharon's giving us expectations on what state revenues are looking like. Could we get, and maybe that would just give us a little more time or let everybody know it's coming. I don't know what that is, I'm just, everyone's like, okay, our cost went up 25%, what's it gonna be next year? Well, we have no idea. Well, would we know 6 months into the year? Would we, So I just never knew whether MWRA was like one and done, you just is what it is, or whether we could get advance notice. It'd be helpful. I don't know that it has to be monthly, excuse me. Monthly.
Isn't it based on our uses from the prior year, Fidel, the water rates and all of that, isn't it? Doesn't have some basis with what we actually used in the prior year for water usage?
Yeah, I mean, so the it's I guess it's complicated. So the MWRA, like us, has a budget, right? But it's a lot bigger. And what they do is the budget is announced, and then they allocate a portion of that budget depending on the percentage of water that you represent. So if Reading is 1% of the usage, then Reading pays 1% of the budget. If Boston is 10% of the budget, then Boston pays 10% of the usage. So it's yes, it's connected, but it's complicated. But yeah, I can share that.
Yeah, so we might know what we consume, but we don't know what their budget's gonna look like and what our percentage of their total budget we're gonna need to pay. So I think it's really difficult to be able to have a good runtime on what that number is gonna be.
Thanks, Mark. So I guess the solution to this is to just go into other communities and waste all their water. So we end up with less of the portion. It seems like Boston is the go-to.
So you're saying we should tap into Stoneham? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Shower
just leave the water running.
Shower and Stoneham.
Chelsea, are they MWRA?
They are, yeah, absolutely.
Well, you gotta be at home a little bit more.
I will be showering tonight.
Yes. Thank you. When I get home, I'll shower. I appreciate it.
Twice.
Okay, but keep going, Sharon.
Back to it. So this is stormwater revenues, and we are above projection. So we're already starting to generate free cash here because we're at 103.9, meaning our projection was 553.48, and we have already collected 571.789. So on the stormwater side, we're already showing money that's going to go back to free cash, or what they call certified surplus. They call it something different for the enterprise funds, but it's essentially free cash for your stormwater fund.
Sharon, what does the stormwater reserve look like? Is that strong?
It is pretty strong for the size of stormwater, but they've been making some pretty good increases year over year. But we did use a little bit more certified surplus in this last year than we have in the past. So, they were very, everything's pretty healthy, but you just don't know what your regeneration looks like every year. Are you going to regenerate whatever you took out to support the budget each year? So it's hard to say if it will go up or down, but it has been trending up. And it has been healthy.
And you told us that we can't move between water and sewer and stormwater reserves, right?
No, we can't. They're separate, so you can't do that. But free cash from the general fund could be used to fund something that, let's say, water, or sewer, or stormwater, if we were in a situation with an emergency that we really needed to have funding. But I guess I would say that, you know, it's hard to even know how water is gonna look in the end because, you know, we do tend to regenerate free cash, so it's, you know, it's possible that we could have healthier numbers next year or the year after, so. You know, obviously I use that as a last resort because they should operate, most enterprise funds should operate autonomously and able to fund all their expenses within their rate, so. Hopefully that it won't come to that, but it's an option to keep in the back of your mind is that the general fund free cash is available to be used in the enterprise funds if needed.
Thank you.
Let's see here. What am I looking at? Yeah, this is stormwater. Harder to look at like this, I apologize. So this here is the sewer expenses, and so they're broken down by category. Salaries, expenses, debt service, capital, just so you can get a summarized look, otherwise it'd be several pages long. And at this point of the year, they've expended 83.5%. The one area that kind of drove as a low percentage is capital, so again, I reminded the department head and everybody in that department that there's money sitting here that needs to be encumbered. There's $225,000 left in sewer capital that hasn't been encumbered yet. And it's more than likely in process, but the reminder's always welcome. So, and sometimes, in some cases, some of this funding is coming from an April town meeting and they just haven't gotten around to it yet. So, but we don't ever wanna see capital turn back if they had plans for that money. If they had no plans for it, that's fine. They can turn it back, but if they just failed to put in a requisition and it closes out, we want to avoid that. This is our water, I believe, yes. Same thing, summarized view of our expenses. We're at 83% as of 5/11/22. And again, I see some capital here, this 59.4 is 581,601. Water did have money added at April town meeting, so the majority of that has to do with that. But I nonetheless always like to remind the department head and Ryan and whoever else is involved in these projects that we have money out there that needs to be encumbered by June 30th, so they don't forget. And then the last here is stormwater. They're at 79.8% of their total projected budget for expenses. They have a very small capital left out there for $75,000. Everything else looks pretty good, and it does look like at these low percentages that there will be at least regeneration on the expense side here, my guess, because we seem very low. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily the way it is. It is too soon to say, but at this point in the year to just be at 79.8%, my guess is we're going to have some regeneration on the expense side here, and it's early. You know, looking at this, I can say that with some certainty that there'll be some number, but I don't know exactly what. And that is all three of them, I believe. Yep, that's the end. The only other thing I had to report to you is that the auditors have been working overtime, trying to get all their audits completed, and we will be having an audit committee meeting soon for the fiscal 21 audit, which went well, but I think they were deeply impacted by people having COVID during the holidays, and they are behind. So we have some dates that they've offered up for us to have the audit committee get together and meet in June. So you'll see an email from me soon if you're on that, if you're the liaison that's on the audit committee. You should be hearing about that soon. It should be a good meeting. It's always a very involved discussion. Everybody's very actively engaged. So, but things are going well otherwise, and I have nothing else to report unless you have any other questions.
Board members, questions? No, it looks good, Sharon. Thanks. Keep the money coming in.
Will do.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have a proclamation on National Public Works Week, yes?
Yep.
Yes, we do.
And Mr. Haley has the proclamation. I don't know if you want to read it.
Do you want to read it, Mark, or do you want me to? Whatever you want to do. Carl will read it.
And I'm gonna do one paragraph each.
We'll be here all night. I can read it for you. So the proclamation for National Public Works Week, whereas public works services provided in our community are integral but often unnoticed part of our residents' everyday lives, and whereas the supportive understanding and informed residents is vital to the efficient operation of the Public Works Department and in the areas of administrative services, engineering, highway and equipment, maintenance, stormwater, parks and cemetery, forestry, water, and sewer. And whereas the health and safety and comfort of the residents of this community depends on these facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these services is vitally dependent upon the effort and skill of public works officials and employees, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated first responder personnel who staff our Public Works Department is materially influenced by the residents' attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. And now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Reading, Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim the week of May 15th to May 21st, 2022 as Public Works Week in the Town of Reading, and we call upon all residents and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing quality public work services to this community, and to recognize the contributions which public work officials and employees make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. The Select Board of Reading.
Thank you, Jane and Chris and all. So we sign that if we're good with it?
Correct. Yep.
Awesome.
And then I can make a move to approve.
Yep, please.
Move to approve the National Public Works Week proclamation as presented.
Second?
Thanks, Karen. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? We're 5-0. Flag policy. Thank you. Discussion on flag policy.
Yes. So I sent a legal opinion from our town council, and essentially things are very much in flux. I also have reached out to several of our neighboring communities, including Wilmington, Wakefield, Stoneham, Burlington, and essentially what happened is Shurtleff against Boston, which is a Supreme Court case, really is putting a lot of communities in caution. And essentially what it is the legal opinion is that if one flag is allowed to be flown, essentially all flags are allowed to be flown because it becomes part of public speech. So the recommendation from a town council, as well as all of the town managers that I surveyed ahead of this vote or this meeting tonight, was to basically say no to all. So it is unfortunate, and I'm sure that some more residents really see the flag as a way of commemorating something, but from the town liability perspective, it is a best practice to simply not make the flagpole a space of speech. Instead, we can certainly welcome celebrations as we are discussing later on tonight. But it's my recommendation, as well as the town council's recommendation, to essentially say no to all flag requests.
Member questions, comments? Chris?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I feared this kind of scenario would be coming last time when we voted on this, and then to realize that we'd open the door up to other residents to want other various flags to be flown. It's rather unfortunate the situation that transpired. I guess it's better to have had it for a year than to not have had it at all. I guess if anyone's looking for a silver lining in any of this. But I think to Fidel's point, it is from a liability, like we brought up last time. It just seemed as if something was gonna happen and, you know, it is what it is. We had it for the year. We still have the resolution for Pride Month and all that, so, I mean, you know, that's where we are.
Go ahead, Mary.
Mary Ann Downing, 13 Heather Drive. I read the opinion and I would be curious of if our legal counsel made any clarification between public speech by the government versus speech by a private individual. And as a disclaimer, I'm an attorney, like as Ms. McCarthy is, so we've read these kinds of things before. And when I read, one of the differentiations in the Supreme Court opinion was if the government can make any speech they want, but when private individuals come. So in the past, was the pride flag, for example, that we flew, was that official speech of the town of Reading, or did a private individual request that?
It came through the board.
Came through.
It's government.
Because again, the cautious thing is what our counsel said, but just it may not all be lost as we think about it, say by next year, or as the opinion's better understood. Because there's a difference for government. Governments can make any kind of speech they want, and if the government wants to fly something on our flagpole, it's their speech. But versus private individuals, I mean, that's really how a lot of people look at the Boston opinion like, well, you have to fly all the flags. Well, it's private individuals. So I just didn't know, what was this year also going to be the town of Reading acting as government to fly a flag versus private individual requesting it?
There actually have been a lot of both, especially recently. We had another private request that came through also. So
Right,
it's
and
not so easy to.
Right, so, yeah, no, you'd have to only have it be the town of Reading, and then you'd have to be answering to people saying, well,
Why is this
why are you
government?
making this speech? Did we tell you to make this speech? But it could change by next year. I was just curious if, is town council's legal opinion privileged, or will we
No,
get to see it?
It was essentially, I mean, I received an email essentially confirming what you're explaining, that there is some discretion, right, to government speech, right? But that could be challenged if we try to identify the source of that speech, right? I mean, and it just gets tangled in the weeds, and what basically the advice from council and all the communities around us is to essentially shy away from it and be conservative.
So, for example, it would be the government speech, but say the government speech was responsive to individuals asking the government to express that.
That's where it
speech.
gets tricky, right? That's where it gets sticky.
So that's good for the public to understand that.
Yeah. What I might suggest, folks, is a couple of things. One is, why don't we monitor it? And maybe on a quarterly basis, we just kind of see if things have moved, or if I think, Fidel, you mentioned that a number of communities are forming a flag policy. It'd be great for us to either participate in that or at least watch what it is, see what's going on. The other possibility could be, and maybe we bring this up at another time, is to think about an alternative flag pole, if you will, that would have to be kind of open. And again, I'm not suggesting that that's a great idea, but there could be some alternative ideas to figure out how to accommodate things. But again, probably under the scenario that anybody that requested could have access. And that may also tell us, stay away. So, Chris.
Yeah, I think that's the direction it's going, and I'd like to have a loophole that a select board member could just request it, and then all of a sudden I have the brilliant idea of having the branches of the military flags up there that seems disingenuous, that all of a sudden was just my idea. And it doesn't seem right that, us five just get to decide something and nobody else can, because everybody owns the flagpole out there. It's not us five. So I'm more of the, it's unfortunate, but I don't think that we should be setting anything at this point.
Any other opinions?
No, Ms. Downing brings up a great point that I had when I first read about the decision in terms of the distinction between government speech and speech that was at the request of a citizen. And I did note town council's warning about, even though we as the select board could on our own decide to fly a particular flag, but that once we do so, we're potentially converting that flagpole into a public forum. So unfortunate, but I trust our town council on this.
All right, so, sorry, I'm seeing all sorts of questions in the back. Cheryl, I see you first, and then, is that Victor? No, sorry, thank you, Mr. Cheryl.
You're passing around the flag.
Thank you. Victor's gonna talk on this one too, okay.
Cheryl Lestrade, 22 Gould Street. I just wanted to know that if when we're doing any research, if we thought about, I know you need some of the neighboring towns, did we look at Woburn? Because I do know, for example, last year Woburn did raise a Juneteenth flag. So it might be interesting just to take a look at what their flag policy is and how they were able to do that with no hiccups.
Yeah, I mean,
That was last year.
It was last year, yeah.
Yeah, I think Winchester
like
did
2 weeks
also.
ago, right.
I'm pretty sure
I know,
Winchester did.
But still, I mean, like, if we can just take a look at that, maybe they're working on something, because I do know, I think there is a potential of them doing it again this year for Juneteenth.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think we gotta monitor what's going on and see, how things are changing, where different communities have policies that they're gonna establish. And it has, obviously, as town council to keep us abreast of any decisions. Okay, so that rolls us into a resolution about Pride Month, which I think is very similar, in fact, to the board package, maybe even have 2021 in it. The pre-revised package, sorry.
That's correct.
I'm looking at the older package.
Could you show the new
Sorry.
proclamation? Okay, thank you. And Mr. Haley has it as well.
So backdrop, I think, even before you read it, so this is, I believe this is what we did last year with one exception, and that is if you look at the one that's in the packet, the last line is, and further, be it resolved that a rainbow flag in recognition of Pride Month be raised and flown on the town flagpole during the month of June. I think based on our just discussion, that's no longer in the 2022 version. But I believe it's the same otherwise. Chris, would you mind reading?
So Reading Select Board, a resolution for Pride Month, whereas the Reading Select Board believes the inherent dignity of everyone who helps form our community, whereas Pride Month commemorates the Stonewall Uprising of June 1969 and elevates the pursuit of equal justice and opportunity for LGBTQ+ Americans, and whereas the Reading Select Board values diversity, equity, and inclusion, is committed to equal rights and opportunities for Reading's LGBTQ+ residents, and is dedicated to fostering the acceptance of all members of the Reading community. And whereas the Reading Select Board recognizes the important contribution of its LGBTQ+ residents to the town's history, culture, economy, and civic life, and whereas it is imperative that residents of all sexual orientations and gender identities and expressions feel valued, safe, empowered, and supported by their peers, educators, and community leaders. And whereas we affirm our support for our LGBTQ+ residents and stand with them to protect their civil rights and ability to live openly without fear. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Reading Select Board, do hereby resolve that June 2022 be recognized as Pride Month in the town of Reading, and urge members of the Reading community to recognize the contributions made by members of the LGBTQ+ community and importance of this month. The Select Board of Reading.
Any comments, board members? No, it's a shame that the flag piece is gone, but for now it is. So do we have a motion?
Yep, move to approve the Pride Month proclamation as presented.
Second.
Thanks, Karen. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? We are 5-0. Thank you. Next is Juneteenth, but I'm just gonna make sure that's where it is on my agenda. Discuss and plan Juneteenth holiday. Amy.
You're right, I'm so sorry. Caitlin, could you pull up the flyer? Sorry, so So for Pride Month celebration, it is actually converging to be a pretty cool event. So the GSA, which I think is the Gay Student Alliance, I think another group and residents that are involved in planning are going to have a car parade. It is on the 12th of June, and Kaylin is pulling up the flyer. The parade is essentially same route as last year. They are starting at 2:30 p.m. And meeting up at Reading Public Library. This is on Sunday, June 12th. And they expect the parade to be for roughly an hour, maybe hour and a half. And how it was explained to me is that last year basically homes were cheering along the route and had signs, pride signs celebrating a pride. And it was really a fun event. They even had a contest for best decorated car. So it will end at the end in the town common. There's going to be some speaking engagements and a bake sale by the Gay Student Alliance. So it should be a cool event. I will definitely be coming with my family, and we're looking forward to it.
Is there any information on how to get involved, perhaps?
No.
No, okay. Answer a different question.
If you do, you can contact me. You can also just contact me. There's a bunch of groups that are doing it. It will leave from the Reading Public Library parking lot, and then it'll go all the way around town. It's quite a long loop.
Yeah, it's a big loop.
Yeah, it's a big loop. And Fidel's been great and jumped on it. I also just wanted to amplify a little bit while we're talking about Pride events. The library is also sponsoring the Rainbow Run which is for kids, strollers, wheelers, walkers, whatever you want to do. It's a half-mile loop right around the library blocks, down School, Mount Vernon maybe, and back up Grand. And they'll be running a loop, and there'll be popsicles and lots of fun things. It's for students. It's at 3 o'clock on Thursday the 16th. Everybody is invited. And Fidel's welcome to run that. It's not quite as long as the Boston Marathon, but we just wanted to amplify that and a lot of the other work that's been going on with the Pride, and I know a lot of different organizations. So keep your ear down to the ground, and I'm sure you'll find a lot of brightness and rainbows throughout the town.
Thanks. Amy, is this information, is it posted on the town website?
It will be on the town website.
It
It'll be on the newsletter.
We have a community calendar, but in general, just all the newsletters. Fidel's got a newsletter, library's got a newsletter. We'll try and cross-pollinate with the PD has their social media, all the departments have social media, so we'll try and do that. So.
Thank you. Okay, now let's discuss and plan the Juneteenth holiday. Who is leading that discussion? Planning? Hi, Amy.
Yeah, so Charlotte.
The Student of Color and Allies for Equity, Justice, and Inclusion at Reading Memorial High School is planning a community movie night fundraiser to commemorate Juneteenth. They've chosen to show Hidden Figures, which uplift women of color during a time when they were not valued. It's a new group at the high school, doing really good, and they would like to donate some of the proceeds to a youth social justice group of their choice. And so far, we're looking at having Senator Lewis and Jamil Adams be our guest speakers. And it's June 18th.
And location and exact timing?
Washington Park.
I
didn't know I was going through the whole speech.
Wow.
It's going to be from 6 to 10. So the celebration will start at 6, and the movie itself will start at 7:30.
I just also want to add that I believe you will be having some visitors at your May 31st meeting.
Yes,
Students.
the student would actually like to introduce themselves to the select board in person.
Great. So.
Cool.
And just to amplify that, first of all, I know you have
let's say proclamation, but a statement on Juneteenth to approve tonight. And in that spirit, particularly, I think in light of recent events, how we show up for our Black, Indigenous, people of color in our community, for our LGBTQ community, for people who have various race, ethnicities, and worship in different ways. I just want to extend an invitation to you. I think you have heard about this, and to those of you watching from home. Tomorrow night is a kickoff meet and greet with Dr. Chatterjee at the library from 7 to 8. She is forming the partners and allies for an inclusive Reading, which is going to be a group very similar to the coalition headed by Arpa for her group. But please come if you're curious, if you want to learn more, if you know people who are curious and want to learn more. It's open to the public. There'll be refreshments. There will be an activity. And it really will be about focusing on who we are as a community and how we show up and make space for everybody in our community. So that's tomorrow night, the 18th, Wednesday, from 7 to 8 at the library.
I know that one's already on my calendar, yep, thank you.
Thank you, folks. So we have a proclamation here as well. Chris.
Juneteenth in the United States, whereas news of the end of slavery did not reach the frontier areas of the United States in particular, the state of Texas and other southwestern states until months after the conclusion of the Civil War, more than 2.5 years after President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, and whereas on June 19th, 1865, Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas with the news that the Civil War had ended and enslaved were free. And whereas Juneteenth became a holiday within southwestern states commonly known as Juneteenth Independence Day, the word Juneteenth resulted from words June 19th merged together in speech. And whereas this day is an opportunity for people to celebrate freedom and equal rights in the United States, these celebrations range from religious events, rodeos, barbecues, cookouts, neighborhood block parties, etc. And whereas on Juneteenth, certain foods became popular and subsequently synonymous at celebrations such as strawberry soda pop, at barbecues, special dishes were prepared such as collard greens, cornbread, and meats including lamb, pork, and beef. Meats were not so easily accessible. And whereas the Juneteenth flag was created by Ben Haith, founder of the National Juneteenth Celebration Foundation, in 1997 and later revised in 2000 to what we know now. The star represents Texas, and the star burst represents all 50 states. The arc represents a new horizon, and finally the colors represent the American flag, a reminder that slaves were and are American. And whereas Juneteenth is celebrated all over the world, including but not limited to Ghana, Honduras, Japan, Taiwan, Trinidad, and Tobago, and whereas on July 24, 2020, the governor of Massachusetts signed a bill recognizing Juneteenth as a state holiday, now therefore be it resolved that the town of Reading and the Reading Select Board recognize June 19, 2022 as Juneteenth and continue to support the nationwide celebration of Juneteenth, Independence Day throughout the United States of America. The Select Board of Reading.
Thanks, Chris. A lot of reading tonight.
Yes.
Any comments from board members? Questions? No? We have a motion?
Yes, motion approved the Juneteenth proclamation as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jackie. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? 5-0. Great. Sign that, send that one around. Back up to my agenda. Intermunicipal agreement for the Director of Assessing Department. So Victor, you holding up your hand for Cheryl again?
She's gonna speak for me.
Oh, God. I don't know what you're talking about.
Me neither. Hi.
Thanks, Chris and Jay.
So I'll start. I mean, and I'll share a funny story. When I walked into town hall on my first day, I see Victor and I say, "I know you." So Victor's wife and my wife worked together in Chelsea for 5 years. And I said, what are the odds of that we end up in the same building many times here. So Victor obviously is highly recognized as a leader in his field of assessors. And I shared an email with the board that the assessor field is very unique and is quite dwindling. So and I'll share my personal experience that Chelsea was looking for an assessor for a year and just couldn't fill it. The number of positions that are out there are a lot, and we are lucky to have this important position filled by Victor, who is qualified, highly qualified, and again is recognized as a leader in his field. Wakefield and Reading have been in this partnership for a long time. Things are working well. I asked Bob, I asked Sharon if we've ever missed a deadline. The answer is no. If there's ever been an issue that requires reassessment, and the answer was a resounding no. I've met with Rob Dolan, who's the town manager in Linfield. I met with Steve Mayo, who's the town manager in Wakefield, and essentially we feel at this point comfortable to include Linfield into the agreement. It results in a modest savings to us of 15% on the agreement, but more importantly, I think it keeps the partnership growing, and if you kind of foresee this out, right? When Victor does decide to hang the boots, that salary is going to be attractive enough to attract someone of a high caliber. If we were going alone to hire an assessor, it would be a huge burden on our books, or we wouldn't be able to hire anybody. So this is an example of an agreement where by pooling our resources we're able to get more. So again, I know that Victor had a few things to share as well.
A decade ago, when we created the regional position for Wakefield and Reading, one of the questions I got, what hours are you gonna be here and how are you gonna do it? And people were scratching their heads. And politely I said, I'll figure it out. And over a decade doing 2 communities, as Fidel has said, checking on me behind my back, huh, buddy? I got your number. There've been no issues. We've never issued tax bills late. My communities are usually in the first 5% to submit values to the Department of Revenue. We are usually very early when it comes to classification, and tax bills are typically in the can early December, ready to go. Those are the biggest timelines. You blow any one of those, it affects each one down the road, and the town years ago found itself in the position of having to issue third quarter estimated bills, which will mess up your receivables and a lot of your legal timelines. Fortunately with me and the folks that work with me and the people that support me, we don't get that. Linfield is about 4,600 parcels. It's all the same math is what it is. It's just models are a little bit different, the numbers change. In Wakefield, yeah, we're high. You think we're high, let's go over to Reading. Boy, Reading's high, now let's go over to Linfield. Oh my goodness. But it's all the same math, and it's adhering to the basics. It's basically everything is plan your work your plan. Everything is highly statistically driven. And try not to let any biases in so you can produce the best values for the taxpayers. And as far as someone being recognized in the field, tomorrow I'll be speaking with the Essex County Assessor's Office, Assessors Association, which I'll be a part of, being in Linfield, and I'll be talking all things exemptions. Now, how does it benefit us here in Reading tomorrow? In Wakefield tomorrow? It doesn't. Benefits us down the road. Because any converts we have to the way that we provide senior tax relief in this town, those are future communities and state representatives, state senators I can count on as I try to usher a resolution bill for senior tax relief through the legislature. So, trying to keep busy, trying to stay engaged. Any questions at all? Any?
I get a quick question. Do Reading and Wakefield use the same system and Linfield too? Or are you working with 3 different systems to get this done, or?
All the same systems and all the same, well, once I establish in Linfield, all the same vendors for real estate and personal property and the same reval timelines, so.
So that's actually, when you say same reval timelines, meaning the same year?
Yes.
For all the communities?
Yes.
Is that okay?
I did 10,000 parcel communities. It's easier on me. A little difficult for the DOR. The poor fella who's my advisor is sending me emails and, wait a second, you sent it to Reading and I'm in Reading, but you wanted Wakefield. And I put in for a little extra mileage for those 2 months, just trying to coordinate where I need to be to answer their questions. But again, it's only, like I said, about another 46 or 4,800 parcels.
And is that how the 36-28 split came about? Is it kind of like number of parcels per community?
It's the only real metric to use, you know, size of the community. And Wakefield and Reading being relatively similar, you know.
Great, I'm excited about this.
Yeah, sounds great. We'll save a little money. All comes together.
And Rob Dolan will be sharing some of the marketplace with Reading at some point.
Yeah, I hear the Fidel and Steve are strong arming him into, was it Davio's?
That's right, that's
Okay,
right,
yes.
that's right.
The other thing is, I'm not
Midfield
about to
market.
bite off more than I can chew.
Great.
If I feel this becomes untenable, there is a very easy out clause. And the one thing I won't sacrifice is my health, my mental well-being. So we're gonna give it the old college try.
And you'll speak up, obviously, if.
Yes.
Okay.
I was just curious, did Linfield lose their assessors? That's what precipitated this conversation and this new partnership?
Yes, there were designs on regionalizing the position with someone. The candidate they had really didn't fit any other community, and they asked me if I was interested.
Okay. If you think you can do it, I'm all in. Great.
Wouldn't be here if I didn't think I could do it.
And this is a 3-year
Yes.
contract, basically, right? Yes. Any other questions? Kyle, Chris?
Will there be any other staff requirements that you will need?
Well, if anyone's out there, the assessor's office does have a current opening for an administrative type. Please send your resumes through the Town of Reading website. We're looking to hire an all-around clerk of the works to help out. But as far as changing staffing, no. It requires a little bit more coordination with staff in all communities, obviously, to maximize the best usage of my time. Sitting there and working excise at the counter is not the most effective use of my talents and energies. It's negotiating with tax attorneys who may foolishly file for appeals in communities I represent. I hope they're watching. And, you know, developing models and things of that nature. But the only thing I could see is maybe my assistant in each community might get a little bit of a bump if the workload warrants or may increase slightly to compensate. That's about it.
So the deficiency that we have now, if that doesn't get fulfilled, I mean, that will impact the whole process a little bit, won't it?
Well, it is a clerk position.
Yeah.
My assistant is still there.
Right.
And we get out there on the road and do what we have to do, picking up permits. And fortunately, last year was our 10-year cyclical assessment requirement where every property was viewed. We got certified by the Department of Revenue on that, so we can take a knee 1 year.
Okay.
So we don't have to go out there and do another 1,500, inspections in neighborhoods for a year. We have a little bit of a breathing room. But hopefully we can bring someone in pretty soon. Already got 5 or 6 resumes in.
Yeah, and she left last week, so.
Okay, so
Yeah, there's still cake upstairs if you.
Left last week, she moved to
Arlington.
Dormant, so, okay. Oh, so it's very recent, okay.
Chris?
Yeah, I guess my opinion on this is I remember you coming here before us last year, and, you know, until you prove otherwise, I trust that you're gonna do the same quality of service that you've done this past year, so.
Thank you for your confidence.
Anything else? No,
Thank you for coming this
Great.
evening, on the
Yeah.
late side.
So when you say an assistant in each community, is that what we were just talking about?
No, I have an assistant assessor in Reading and in Wakefield. Due to the size of Linfield, I don't have one. Yet, if Rod Dolan's listening, we're gonna change things up over there a little bit. Key thing is to try, when you have new people in the field, try to get them interested. Try to help them progress educationally. And that way, they might add to my when I die list, which I do have. He just doesn't know where it is yet. Because he might be the one that killed me and gets
I hope I don't find it.
So is Linfield on track to try to hire somebody, or is that a wish?
Linfield has quite a mix of outside services that are unnecessary when you have someone like me there. So we'll be taking a look at contracts in place, and what we have and what our future needs will be.
But you will, let me state it as a statement, you can tell me if it's right. You will be getting support from Linfield
Yes,
in order to do what has to happen to add to your burden.
yes.
Okay, thanks.
So,
I'm good then.
thanks.
Yeah.
Too bad.
All right, have a resolution for this too, please?
Yes, move to approve the intermunicipal agreement for the Director of Assessing Department as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Kyle. Any discussion? None appearing. Let's vote. All those in favor? Opposed? We have 5-0. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you. We'll see you next year.
See you
Yeah,
soon.
we're
See you in
gonna see you
June.
soon.
Very
Next
soon.
year.
Make it early June. I have plans late June.
Yes, very good.
Mark, 5-minute stretch break?
Sure, let's do it. So we are in recess for 5 minutes. Thank you. All right, we're back in order, folks. Thank you, Carlo. So let's see, next on our agenda, appoint a select board member to the RMHS track naming committee. So I received a note from the chair of the school committee that they have a proposal to name the RMHS track after Coach Hal Croft. And they're forming a committee and they asked to have a select board representative. So I told him that I would bring it up at our meeting.
This was a liaison report, a future agenda item that I brought up.
Yeah, we gotta come back to liaison stuff too. So that could be on, I wanted to bring it here because we need to appoint someone
Perfect.
to actually join.
Yep.
Would someone like to volunteer to do it? Carla, I'm good. Everybody good?
Yes.
Great. Carla, thank you. You are appointed.
All right.
Future
Do we have
agendas.
to make a motion for
Um,
approval or no?
I don't think so.
Didn't we have the same question last meeting? I said the same thing and you said
We're not,
nothing, so-
we're
I
not
think we
forming a
said no.
committee or, we're not
think
forming
so.
a committee or
Alright.
anything.
Right.
It's just,
Scratch that off my list.
Yeah. So why don't we come back to liaison reports and town manager report, and then we'll go to future agendas and meeting minutes. So liaison reports, anyone want to?
I just have a quick one from last night. CPDC had a few quick, and I don't know if this is a new practice or someone's moving, but we're getting a chiropractor in town, actually next to my building, at 484 Main Street, so she went before them to apply, to redo the awning, Village Chiropractic. And then half and half went before the board to get their awning redone, but nobody was represented for half and half, so they kind of punted a little bit on that one, but basically the same footprint, same everything else. And then the main agenda item last night was 459 Main, which is 128 Tire, and did not get approved still. The hearing was continued, and the CPDC wanted a lot more information, background, construction management plan, still discussing, not so much density, but like setbacks, and still an ongoing discussion, and, you know, that was that. That's all I have.
Chris?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, the school committee approved the Arpa thing, 6-0, not 6-0. Yes, 6-0. And then obviously the Arpa committee as well put forth the same motion that we all agreed on tonight. Park had its last meeting, which was just basically reviewing meeting minutes of prior meetings plus the meeting minutes of that meeting. So I think we have to add that in the future for future agendas to sunset that. And then I was able to attend the Reading Police Open House that they had this weekend, which was pretty well attended. Fidel was there all dressed up in gear and everything else. It was a good time overall. I had office hours. Also, today was the first time. The senior center had a good turnout. Here it was just me, so we'll see how it goes for you guys in the future. And then Jackie and I will be doing the BAS committee interviews. I think the 25th is what that we agreed upon. So if people want to send in their applications for all various boards and committees, there's lots of openings and whatnot for everyone to get their applications in. So
Can we actually post the openings list? Is that something we can put onto the website?
It is on the website and it is on the last page of the packet. So
Yeah,
if
I saw it
scroll-
in the email.
if you're scrolling, yes, but yes, we can.
Just thinking to share with people.
Recruiting's a big deal.
For sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so can we just go there for a sec to the last
Yeah.
page? Let's do that.
Could you open up the list, Caitlin? Thank you.
So as we're just kind of talking about, as you're gonna put the list up, it's a great opportunity to get involved on a volunteer committee in the town. We have everything from the Board of Assessors, the Celebration Committee, the Board of Cemetery Trustees. In fact, I don't see a single committee that doesn't have an opening. Or is this just the ones that do have openings, so that wasn't a fair statement? I think that might be the case.
I think it's just the opening.
Just the ones that have openings. But there are lots of them here. And we would love for folks to engage. I know the Council on Aging is looking actively for some new members to come on.
So I didn't think the ZBA was fully populated, or I wasn't sure the RHC was fully populated.
So we put on one full and one associate last time.
ZBA?
ZBA.
I think we.
EBA is full, but they'll have some people
Re-upping?
that their terms are ending, so they'll be re-upping.
How about, may I ask Caitlin, thank you, what about the building committee? Because I've been looking online and that, I don't know if the online
Permanent
is,
building committee?
what is it called, what'd she say?
PBC?
The
Yes,
permanent building
yes.
committee?
Yeah, they've got 3 associates open.
They have associate memberships open.
Okay, thanks, and that's what it has said online, so thank you.
So in the past, the way we've done this is re-upping is applying, it's reapplying.
Right.
It's not, so even if there are people that are re-upping, that means there are openings on that board.
Yes.
So I guess I should be clear, these vacancies do not include all of the terms that will be expiring June 30th.
Got it.
These are the openings.
These are just openings right now,
Right.
that anyone could apply for right now, but
Right.
these do not include everyone's terms that expire June 30th and that they may or may not be re-upping for.
Got it. So I think the essence of this is that there are opportunities on every committee, every
Yeah.
single one.
Yeah.
And we'd love to have people join.
Excuse me, as Mark said, if you're someone that just recently got appointed, you have to reapply. If you were filling in a term, or if you're, a lot of our volunteers are longstanding members of boards and committees, and they know to reapply. But I think it's very important that if you wanna do another 2 or 3 years, you have to reapply, it's not automatic.
Great. And then does the clerk send a reminder if it's time, the end of a term, and it's time to reapply?
So we have.
Our office does, and Jackie's already sent out those letters a couple weeks ago, and so we have a return date, I believe, of either the end of this week or next week to get those responses back.
So just what, if you said you guys were thinking of the 25th of May,
I think that's what was
Yeah,
discussed.
and it'll be first, just a first meeting, the interviews will probably happen in the first week of June, is just to make a schedule,
Got it.
Caitlin shared that last year, it was like 3 days, for 4 hours at a chunks or something like that, so.
we had a lot of
That long?
folks, we approved a
Did you really?
lot of people. We
Okay.
did, we brought a lot of
Okay.
people forward last year.
On the 25th, we're gonna meet and try to work out a schedule that is not
10-minute
as brutal,
interviews?
but
Yes.
And sells for 4 hours.
that sounds good.
We
Okay, scaring
interviewed,
her.
how many people do we interview?
Mine was
lot.
not that painful.
We interviewed a lot.
Can I
Maybe a lot, maybe Colin and I are just really good at it, I don't know.
Jackie and I will be streamlining the process.
Karen and myself was on Zoom, and that was, our first year, and it went.
Maybe Zoom is quicker than in person,
It was
that's the only
more than one night.
only world I
It was
know.
more than one night for, just because of the, we don't wanna have interviews at 10 o'clock at night, but, yeah, it's, and hopefully you guys are in person, right? You can try to do it in person?
I think
Hybrid?
we'll offer the opportunity because then you'll get more people that are willing to do it.
Yeah.
If we can meet their schedule instead of ours.
I think that's a good idea.
Having Caitlin or Jackie also remind you of the time, like otherwise,
And while
helps
we're
to
on
keep it
topic,
moving.
I'm sorry, while we're on topic, I spoke briefly with Ed, and we'll get a meeting together and talk about finance committee, because there's one full opening, and then there's some people, I think, scheduled to reapply as well, so we'll get that happen. Okay, sorry, so that was, we kinda hijacked the ask, sorry. Karen.
Liaison
what's-
report, okay, the community garden looks fantastic, and that also serves as like informal trails and conservation commission meetings, cause it's all the same people doing this volunteer work and staff, and so, thank you so much to everyone who has contributed. I think I was using your wheelbarrow, you have the same crappy wheelbarrow I do, only yours
But
is in
that's why I
better shape.
donated it.
Yep, I know, he said, I don't want it back, they
Done with
said,
it.
yeah, I totally understand that, and,
It's appreciated nonetheless.
so that's all I really have for this time.
Just an update from the Cultural Council. They have a survey out till the end of this month on projects of interest. For me as a new select board member, it was really encouraging to see the wide variety of topics that they cover. They're doing their last meeting of the program year in person on June 6th in the evening, place to be determined.
Cool.
Oh, and I should say too, if anyone's watching, that they will be preparing for their yearly Mass Cultural Council grant making opportunities in the fall. So if folks have ideas for things like public art, history, other cultural programs, please keep that in mind over the summer.
Thank you. The Council on Aging had 2 meetings since our last meeting, including one joint meeting with Recalc. So the core activities right now are there's going to be a community-wide survey that will be going out in early September, and the Council on Aging and Recalc have been working together closely on that. June 1st is the next open session to talk about thoughts about a new senior center and needs for the community. And I'll probably should hurry and get my exact details. It's June 1st, and my calendar's closed, so it's gonna take me one more second to get to it. And I have written down 7 o'clock, so that's all I know at the moment. Is it at the library?
That's correct, the library.
The library, thank you.
I forgot one thing, I mentioned, town meeting, just like wiped out my brain cells, but I did have the good fortune to attend the interim RMLD general manager appointment, and congratulations to Greg Phipps, and thank you to the other candidates, they applied, and so it's really nice, their Board of Commissions is excited to have that
Good.
accomplished.
Great.
So Colleen retires.
I have one other thing, the RAC, the Reading Arpa Advisory Committee, has put together a survey that should be going out, I think, later this week, yes?
Yep.
And we'll be encouraging all residents to please fill out a very simple, just 5 or 6 question survey to get some feedback. So we'd really appreciate that feedback on priorities as well. Council Recalc RAC, Trust Fund Commissioners, still good. So the interesting news is as interest rates go up, it means we start to get more money earned in interest that goes back into the coffers that we can spend on other things. Kind of weird how inflation works. I think that's it. Okay, town manager report, please, Fidel.
Okay, I'll spend the majority of the time talking about Killam School. Caitlin, if you can bring up your fancy chart. So Caitlin is gonna start helping me, creating some visuals, right? So we hear everyone loud and clear that we need to really spread the word on the Killam School now that time meeting is over. This is just one graphic that Caitlin put together. I think it's great. It's very colorful, very engaging. It's got a lot of details, so you can dive in, or you can stay above. I mean, for us as a board, the main action item is we need to name the school building committee. So the school building committee can include up to 9 members, and it is appointed by the town moderator, the school committee chair, and the select board chair. And we must appoint these folks before July 31st, 2022. But my goal is to do it in June. So it's essentially it's an advertised meeting of the appointment committee, so it's up to 9 members, but it must include the 5 permanent building committee members, not the associates, the 5 actual voting members of the PBC, and that is by mandated by Reading bylaw. As all of the boards, only voters of Reading can serve on a board. So once we do that, I think it's pretty clear who's on it. But I'm sure we'll have some more conversations. the main, the second main deadline is we will be putting forth an article to town meeting, subsequent town meeting, to request the $2.2 million that is going to fund the design of the Killam School. That is a requirement of the MSBA. That must be fully funded before we are led into the next process. The $2.2 million will be part of the overall school expense, and it is reimbursable. So in theory, while we're putting it up front, half of it will be reimbursed back to us. And then just in my memo, I wanted to highlight some some dates. So if town meeting in the fall approves the $2.2 million, we will then start designing the school, and the majority of that work will be done by the school building committee. The MSBA ideally will vote on the school on July 1, 2024, which means that we will then take and at that point we'll have a cost estimate of the entire project. We'll also know what is the portion down to the penny of that will be covered by the MSBA. So we'll have a very good sense of what is the portion that we must fund as Reading. So what that means is that town meeting in the fall of 2024 will essentially recommend to put the project on the ballot as a ballot question, and then most likely we will have it as a ballot question in the spring of 2025, whenever that spring election is held.
There is I think there's another Mass School Building Administration meeting scheduled coming up. Is it maybe June 16th? I put it in there, I don't know.
I believe that's right.
They, I attended the last one. They're very helpful, asking the most. Well, I've attended the ones that we've had, but last time they were particularly helpful at asking very basic questions that help drive this to be clear for everybody, the superintendent. And you were there, and I'm trying to think who else was there. I think Sharon was not there, but just to be very clear with the community what the timeline is gonna look like, because as I said, so the vote is now pushing out to spring of 25, so this school is quite a ways away. Yeah. But I think everybody, they need to keep saying it. It's a very complicated process, so I think these meetings have been helpful because you keep hearing the same things or you're clarifying what you thought you understood.
Okay, what else?
That's all I got.
All right, should we talk about future agenda? Is the last version of the next agenda in here?
It is page 68 of your packet.
Thank you. I'm on 68.
There's only 74
There it is.
pages, wow.
Okay, so Ricky's Liquors changed to DBA, Department of Work, great, so Adele come in, okay, great, space recreation, affordable housing trust. So we can take off the resolutions required to obtain, okay, no worries. Other things people would like to put on future agendas, Chris?
Thanks, Mark. So during the meet and greet that Fidel organized for us here with town staff and everything, somebody reminded me that the remote access is gonna, for meetings, ends, June 30th or something?
July 30th.
So in order for employees to still participate from home in meetings, we would have to change our policy if we wanted that to continue. Otherwise, they would be forced to be in person at that time. So just have a discussion on that and see if that's something that we'll all be fine with.
I read, where did I read? The Attorney General's office, and there was a discussion about public meetings. And that's where I was reading about that it's under discussion, that they haven't decided what the next step's gonna be yet, but they're kind of thinking about it right now, which is good because it's getting ready to expire. So maybe we could just put that on, but let's see what's going on. Maybe we can get an update. I'm sure everybody can tell us where it's sitting.
Victor was asking if he could come back in June, can we put him on the 14th to talk about tax classification?
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I think the sooner the better. And so all of us have gone through it once, except you, Jackie. So he is a great resource, and kind of the earlier to get it is great, because I would suggest you schedule one-on-one time with him.
Okay.
And he's a master at explaining, which is great. Carl?
Yeah, I wanna mention that something that we discussed, maybe when we shouldn't have, but about forming a committee to tackle Simon's Way.
So Fidel, do you think June, when would be a good time to form it? I think we ended up kind of saying, not quite yet, but soon? Is that where we left it?
I think it's been fully delineated, correct?
It has been fully delineated, yeah. I think, we gotta come up with a charge that we present to the select board, right?
Right.
So if it's okay with the board, you and I can work on that and.
Help me, what does fully delineated mean?
The site.
Meaning wet versus dry.
The site, got it,
sorry,
got it.
the site,
Okay, thank
the
you.
site,
Would this need to be a separate committee, or should this, you consider a subcommittee of the select board, which we haven't done in a while?
Subcommittee, or do we want to have it broader than that? So it probably should end up being an ad hoc with members of different constituencies.
Well, that's my question, but I guess the charge, it gets back to the charge.
Yeah. So would it be good to have a charge, and let's put it onto you want to put it on the next meeting or June 14th?
I'm home recovering, so.
Let's work on it, let's tackle it.
Alright, so why don't we pop it onto the 31st?
What's the acronym though?
Well, think about that.
No, yeah, that's a future agenda
Can't
item.
discuss it now.
So would we have then the same question that Carlo had with respect to the Oakland Road? Or is that, I know that that's because it involves.
Yeah, I know, it's a good point. I think, I'm not saying that's a good idea, and I have no problem putting that in there, but I think the quickest way to do it, that's the quickest way. We had a presentation, I forget, were you part of that presentation with the ledge and the rock and all the graphs and the charts and so Oakland Road is gonna be very hard to develop.
Yeah.
Right, very expensive, very hard, impact the neighbors, where Simon's Way, the Zani property is flat, and has, brush and trees, but there's only one resident in that neighborhood per se that's abuts it closely, then there's other residents on Havel Street, and then we have Burbank and the field, so that's where I see we can do something quicker. But Oakland Road is the other big parcel that we've been talking about here on the board, and that can be included as well.
Okay.
Hang on.
Yeah, go ahead. Phil, did you want to chime in? Because
Yeah,
we're all about to, but go ahead.
If you don't mind, I mean, you know what, never mind, go ahead.
So I think it may make sense to separate for the moment, to take advantage of Simon's Way and what we're thinking about there, kind of form a committee, set up a charge focused that way. But also Oakland Road is something that we're gonna wanna talk about. Maybe that's the one that's not as mature yet. It takes a little bit more time before we
Absolutely.
make an agenda item out of it. Does that work?
Yeah, so the other thing that, so we had the instructional motion to create a affordable home ownership committee, which that may end up tying into that. So if we wanna take action on the, I forget what the instructional motion was, it's getting late.
Yeah.
But that was to create a committee.
Yeah, I misread the June 14th. This is actually a regional affordable housing intermunicipal agreement. That's a separate topic.
Yeah, Reading.
Yeah, so kind of the whole affordable housing,
As it was approved by town meeting, the instructional motion.
yeah, so why don't we just have an agenda item to kind of decide our next step? Sure. And then if you can have some input already to share with us, that would be great. Structure through town council, et cetera. Yeah, super. As far as, you mentioned, park, I think it'll sunset by itself in July per our structure, right? I don't think we have to do anything, do we?
That would be
Just
great
let
if
it-
we didn't have to.
I think that
Okay.
goes into the sunset. We do need to talk about next steps with parking, and maybe the answer to that is ask Christine kind of the next steps and Julie. In terms of where do they need select board input for things like, we talked about the ticket price. Tickets, writing a ticket,
The amount.
the amount, yep. Is that something the select board should address? You know, whatever the issues are that relate to that, to the whole parking structure, and I think Christine probably has some issues that she wants to bring up, and probably Julie too, as she's exploring next steps. So maybe if you could see when the right time for that would be, probably the 31st is too quick, but in June probably is good. So that's parking. I'm sorry I missed you guys at the RPD open house. I saw the cutest thing though. I saw this 3-year-old in full gear climbing on the tank thing. And it was just, everybody was taking pictures. It was so cute. It's crazy.
My littlest got over her fear of the bouncy houses they had there.
Yeah.
It took her about 25 minutes, but then you can't get her out, so.
I declined to take a booking photo.
I didn't know there was booking photos.
Yeah, I don't take this the wrong way, but I was in the jail recently, so I didn't need to go in for another tour.
Yep.
For another topic, just to be clear. Anything else for future?
Well, unrelated, but do we have to post for tomorrow night?
So we
No?
can't.
I know we can't, but it's not for parents?
So don't get together and talk about select board
Yeah,
items.
I know, yeah, it's not,
I
it's
think,
not why
I
we're
think we can
there.
attend as private citizens. And that's it. I mean, I think I'm the liaison to the group at this point. But I think as private citizens and none of us talking to each other,
Liaison to what?
to pairs. Last time we appointed me to the
Yeah,
to the
right.
liaison
Oh, we
to
added
pairs.
that,
Yes.
right, we
Yes.
added that, sorry.
So this is really no different than the staff meeting, we don't get
Yeah, yeah,
together
no,
and
right,
talk about
exactly.
agenda items.
Exactly, yeah.
Staff meet and greet, I mean.
Okay.
Yeah, so if someone asks a question, we politely
Yeah, yeah,
decline.
Plus the library's its own entity anyway, so different than town halls.
Well,
Anywhere we
matters.
are,
It's
not that it
public,
matters.
public building,
Open meeting law applies everywhere.
yeah, we're wise to be careful.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go to minutes. Apologies, folks, I didn't get to look at things till the last minute, but I did notice a bunch of changes. I did send them along to Caitlin. I think they're important, they're not changing the meeting, but if it's okay with you, maybe she could put them up. I don't know if others have comments.
Okay, I didn't get a chance to read them.
Yeah, go much bigger.
Heather?
Yes, thank you. So the first suggested change was, it said Sudeshna, I just added her last name,
Yep.
Chatterjee.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure I spelled it right, but I think I
I
did.
think you did.
Yeah, you did. On the public comment, Alan Bollier, I said about a flag policy and flying flags for the military branches, just added those words.
Yep.
Under land use discussion, McCarthy asked if this could be used for other populations, not just seniors. I didn't think you said not seniors, I thought you said not just.
Correct.
Okay. Next one, board consensus, this was an interesting idea to be pursued further by Maltese. So just kind of the action link. The board would like to, and I added, see a number of ideas for this space and discuss putting together a subcommittee for Simon's Way. Under half and half, under this, the second paragraph, building owner Philip Carr noted that the owner, Shanker, we should grab his last name, if we can put it in there. Is a great tenant, business, etc. I added my comment that I had made about emphasizing the town's very concerned with compliance with liquor laws, requested the owners continue to be diligent about this.
Yep.
Then all the way to the page, 3. should we be indicating the reason for abstentions? In other words, stating due to potential conflict of interest as a business owner in the area.
This was a unique case, but if someone was looking at the minutes, they wouldn't know why.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why I thought it was important to add it.
No, I'm fine with this because I'd like to never abstain from anything. And at least it
Yeah, it's not fair to
reiterates
just say
why
abstain.
that it happened, yeah.
No,
So I added it to each one as
Yeah.
appropriate. So
Thank
whenever
you.
it was
Yeah.
somebody abstaining, I added due to potential conflict of interest as a business owner in the
Yeah.
area. Where there was a 311, I put it in parentheses, just to separate it from abstaining versus not approving. Because you opposed on that one. So that's the second. The third one, potential, and then the fourth one, it was both of you abstaining due to potential conflicts, plural, of interest. Then on liaisons, I just added Sudeshna's last name. And the board agreed to this assignment, should have been assignment, my typo, sorry.
That's the one where I had the motion, same as this time.
Yeah.
That was it.
That was it.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments?
Anyone else?
No? All right, how about a motion?
Move to approve the meeting minutes of May 3rd as amended.
A second?
Second.
Thanks, Carlo. Any discussion? All right, let's take a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? We are 5-0. I think we're ready for the final.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thanks, Carlo. All those in favor? Opposed? We're 5-0. We are adjourned.